and the show at iTF Radio. A welcome to new insiders, Brett, Malin, Larry, and Jonathan. Recent content up for insiders includes a video interview with Vance and Jen of the Caravan of Lore, a listener encounters episode, and Utah the Strange, which has footage I personally shot in and around the area of Duck Creek, Utah, where I encountered the 4 shadow people. If you'd like access to the insider premium content, visit intothefrayradio.com and click Become an Insider. It is just $4.99 a month or $54 for an entire year. Now for this episode. Pam, who called in for episode 100, is back to share more of her encounters with what she can best classify as the Fae. Now prior to this airing, Pam and I chatted again for a special Insiders Only episode with more encounters and a deeper look at the history and folklore of the Fae worldwide. A huge thanks to Pam for sharing her stories with us. As you can hear in this upcoming episode, it wasn't easy to tell all of these stories.
Hello?
Hey Pam, it's Shannon.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing really good. How are you?
I'm good.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for calling in with your stories on episode 100. I'm getting, of course, really great feedback for that. I haven't gotten any, actual stories going, oh my gosh, I had a similar experience, but like I said to you, I really think that those will be coming down the pipeline. So it's just kind of a matter of when I get that random email or message through Facebook or something, and then that way I can pass those on to you.
Yeah, that would be great. That's why I shared, was hopefully somebody else might know something or have similar experiences and can help me with this stuff.
No, I personally don't have a lot. I'm not as well read on the Fae as I am with other subjects. So if you don't mind, I kind of wanted to do just a little rundown of like Fae 101 as far as what I found, so that, for myself as well, and maybe it will ring some bells for you, plus anyone out there that's not as well read like I wasn't on the Fae. This is kind of Fairy 101 for them. And okay. Actually a lot of this, it's interesting plus really quite creepy what I read. Most of this information came from a book that I've had actually for a long time, sent to me by John Stackowitz. He sent me a whole bunch of books, and every once in a while I'll just randomly get a book from him, which is amazing. But it's called Fairy Paths and Spirit Roads, and it's by Paul Devereaux. What Paul goes into in the beginning, before he really he goes everywhere and covers the fairy paths and spirit roads, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea of the Fae is that, at least this is in the Celtic tradition, is that they are entities. They're barred from paradise. They inhabited a middle kingdom between human and other world of the dead. Really creepy. They are in fact invisible to us most of the time. Interference with the Fae could cause misfortune to a human. Some fairies take the form of black dogs or other colors, so they basically can shapeshift into whatever they like. They can, in fact, be all shapes and sizes. And this is kind of where I got into this idea of every location has got their kind of names for these different Fae. So here's a few different ones I found more than slightly interesting. So a water kelpie, it sought to devour people, right? And then you go to the English Midlands, and the black anise, it looked to eat just children. Like that was its thing. Now for you, particularly because of the story that you told on episode 100 of the man in his little, outfit and his leather, whatever he was wearing around his waist. So this is straight from Fairy Paths and Spirit Roads. And this is a brownie. And brownies this is in a Cornish account, and this is the description. And I went, holy smokes. So it's a little old man, no more than 3 feet high, covered with a few rags, and his long hair hung over his shoulders like a bunch of rushes, whatever that means. I'm sure if we were in that part of the world, we would know. Someone will email me about that. Yep. Yeah, his face was broader than it was long. He had nothing of a chin or neck to speak of, but shoulders broad enough for a man twice his height. His arms and legs were out of proportion and too long for his body, and his feet were more like a frog than a man's. So, I mean, I don't know if that, not all those details probably ring true with what you were interacting with for that first encounter. But I thought, well, of all the ones that I read about, that sounded the closest to Pam's little man that was so enamored with your fake jewelry.
Yep, that does sound like him. Yeah, pretty close. The feet, I don't remember the feet being different. Just looked like he was wearing little boots, But the rest of it, yeah, sounds about right. The chin was kind of smaller compared to the rest of his face. It was sort of wider in the forehead and the eyes. Like it was not proportionate.
Wow.
And he looked old. He looked really ancient looking, just like an old man with a scrunched up face.
Wow, so that's pretty darn close then.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is.
The little brownie man there. Okay, yeah, so we'll totally get back into that. I just wanted to just see if any of this kind of rang true with you. Okay, so let's keep going. It's not too long, but I just want people to kind of get a nice broad picture of what's being said out there about the Fae. So,
yeah, no, please continue. I've heard some of this, but some of that is new to me. So, yeah.
Oh, it gets even better and creepier because at one point I'm like, okay, that's tying into something else I can think of right off the bat. But okay, so the Fae hate untidiness. It says, and this made me smile. It's a good idea to leave out cake or other morsels, basically to placate them and say we're cool here. You can even leave milk out. They like milk. They can live in hills, trees, springs, pools, and lakes, or even burial mounds. It is thought to be dangerous to obstruct or impinge a fairy path. And this is the part where really, and now there's a two-part thing here because there was something I found online, a little blurb, and then this comes from Fairy Paths and Spirit Roads by Paul Devereaux. And this part here says, Fae can also take mortals, whisking them off to never be seen again. And then this is from a separate little thing here. Let me find it. Sorry. Okay. So here's where I really went, oh boy, maybe all this really is tied in. So, where am I at? Okay. This was kind of like a list of questions to determine whether or not you've had interactions with Fae that maybe you just weren't paying attention, but supposedly if you can say yes to any of these things, then you have already had an encounter or a close encounter with a Fae. And one of those things, and going back to what I just talked about, mortals being whisked away, one of the questions here says, did you ever find yourself excessively sleepy while camping or on an extended nature outing? And that made me kind of just cringe inside because, of course, one of my favorite subjects, and many people are the same as I, is the old missing 411. And I don't know, Pam, if you heard this episode, and I think I just talked about this the other, 2 episodes ago, but Clint Granberry was at Tahoe once, and I think he was in his early 20s, and he was out walking down somewhere near Lake Tahoe by himself, and he saw, I think it was a blue light in the lake, and he had this intense urge just to go down to the water. He's like, I gotta get to the light. I gotta get to the light and see what that is. And I think it was when he was on his way down to the light, all of a sudden he just gets really super tired and sleepy and just feels like, I'm kind of tired. I just want to sit down by that tree and just take a nap. Just randomly, right? Just for no reason at all, it seemed. And he fought off the feeling because he his instincts kicked in and he thought, this isn't really normal, and it's not really normal to want to just sit and nap at the base of a tree. So I'm just going to fight this off. And he ended up leaving the area. But I mean, I even remember asking him, I'm like, what do you think would have happened if you would have sat down and gone to sleep? And it's all conjecture, but it instantly jumps to kind of strange tales in the woods, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I could totally see how these things come into play with people, disappearing or other other instances where they disappear and then they show back up, but they're like addled and they can't really explain what happened to them.
Yeah.
You know, they can't really tell you what happened, just that they feel weird and kind of off. And that makes sense. One of the encounters I had in Ireland made me feel like that, and I could see the thing. So, yeah, we'll get to that later on, but that definitely rings a bell with me on that.
Yeah, see, I definitely, that's why I was like, it's kind of a long list, but I want to run it by Pam and see if it jogs anything here and if you can identify with any of it. So here's a couple more questions from this Have You Encountered a Fae list. Okay. And I'm not going to read them all. It's just two more kind of jumped out to me.
This is interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Pam. Yeah, I just was wanted to get a few little blurbs in, kind of as an intro, and I'm like, man, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. So, thanks for bearing with me.
Yeah, no, sure. I love this. It's great to talk to someone who, takes me seriously and can have a conversation with me about it.
Believe me, I know the feeling. Even your own family's like, oh yeah, shadow people in the forest. Sure, Shannon. Okay, all right. Mm-hmm. They kind of look at you like, oh, you poor thing. You're like, I know what I saw. All right, this one says, when out in nature, have you ever felt the woods themselves were watching you? And again, very common theme, right? When some of these kind of unidentified creepy wood stories, that was on one of the call-in shows. The feeling of all of a sudden you're like, I got to get the heck out of here right now. Have you ever walked through an open field and found yourself brushing away spider webs from your face?
Ooh, yeah, I know that one too. My granny would call that the stray.
Really?
I'll explain that when you want me to when you get down here.
That's awesome. I knew I highlighted all this wacky stuff for a reason. All right, here's something just kind of random. It's not neither here nor there, but it is said that the Fae detest iron and that it may do them bodily harm. And so the person that is, and I'm going to have to find this website and put it in the show notes. I try to look before we hop back on, but unfortunately when I printed it, it didn't print out her or his website address. So, sorry guys, I'll make sure to put that in the show notes. I always try to credit everybody. So this person, for this website, this wasn't from the book, this very last portion I was reading. They're looking at it from the aspect of they're trying to attract fairies, and they actually have like a fairy plant and tree list, and this person, I'm assuming it's a she, I think it's a she. She says that she hasn't owned any cast iron pots for years, just to be sure that there's an off chance that that the Fae will come by. She doesn't want to ruin her chances. So, she's got a different kind of viewpoint than you do there, Pam, and considering your experiences, I can see why. Okay, last little bit, and then I'm gonna hand it over to you because I definitely want to hear the rest of your story. So this is a Fae list, and there's just a few ones that kind of jumped out at me. Oh, we already did the brownie. So there's the buckwus, and it's a fearsome spirit in the great northwestern American spruce forests. He is only seen in glimpses, but has been seen wearing totemic face paints. Hunters are very aware of his presence. Here's another creepy tie-in. He likes to push fishermen off the banks to drown, taking the victim's soul to his home in the forest. So that one jumped out at me.
Yeah.
The Duergar, it's Duergar. I'm sure I butchered that. These are a malicious form of dwarf from northern England. They revel in tricking people into dying. No more details on that one. That's all that says. Okay, this one I'm really going to butcher, but I'm just going to go for it. It's the Gwardid Ann, and these are Welsh water fairies. They are actually beautiful lake maidens who occasionally take mortals to be their husbands. And I remember in your recording you mentioned that you can totally see where maybe a Fae isn't meaning to kill someone, but it's just wanting to interact, and, it grabs a person and takes them underwater to show them their beautiful home and doesn't realize that we can't breathe underwater or we don't have magic powers and it accidentally kills a person. Yeah. So that's kind of what it made me think of, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I only say that because a few of the encounters, I could tell that they seemed, like interested in me, like the little man. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, even though that was, I wasn't really afraid of him because I didn't understand it, I could still see how even he could be a danger to me, and not mean to be. Maybe he just don't understand what humans need, or they don't care. One of the two. I'm not really sure, but I totally can see that. Sure.
Now, Pam, I hate to drag you through both of those stories again, but would you mind, and you don't have to go into every single detail because I already do have some things written down to ask you about these encounters. And again, guys, it's in episode 100, so very recent. Pam called in, and I put the time marker at 1 hour 55 minutes in is roughly when your encounters start. So if people want to go back and listen to that original telling, I think that sometimes that's the kind of the best one, right? Where you're like, oh, I'm kind of nervous, but it feels good to get it out. Like I was in that same boat. So if folks want to check out that original call, they can. But do you mind starting off with, let's start off with the background, right? Like your great granny and then your granny and their relationship, as far as you think that your great grandmother could see them, but your grandmother couldn't, but your grandmother, I think, was the one that was kind of doing what you called like earthworks, right? Like she was working with elements of the earth, but in God's name, and it was always for good things. So kind of give us the background there.
Yeah. Okay. So sort of on both sides of my family. So my great granny my great great granny. She was the one that was sort of not really nice and was cruel and mean to the kids, and she had a bad reputation of sort of being like the witch. And I mean, she wasn't good to her family. She wasn't good to anybody. And so they think maybe she worked with them, as in left offerings to them and, literally worked with them like a fairy woman, or you've heard of that from Ireland, or I think it's called a banfessa is what they call it over there, where they actually work with them. And some of them do good and some of them do bad, according to the folklore. But in her case, they pretty much think she was on the bad side of that. But so there's her, and then my granny, who was a worker, and her mom. And we're not for sure if she could see it or not. We think she could have. Like, she was the one that was with me when the little man showed up and kind of laughed when my grandmother got on to her about it. So we're not positive on that. She died when I was in 5th grade, so I didn't really get a chance to, talk to her about it. But as far as talking to my granny that's still alive and who was the worker, she thinks she knew about it, but she just didn't fool with it. She sort of left it alone, But I don't know. I wonder about that situation with the little man. It was almost like they were, like she knew what he was doing and she was cool with it.
Right.
So I don't know about that. But then also on the other side, so that was my granny that's the worker. That's her dad's side of the family. Her mom's side of the family had a man. It would have been her grandpa. And he was like a worker too. And that's sort of where she gets her line from, or what she does. But they called him a spirit talker. He was also a blacksmith, so that kind of played in. But he would, like, they called it, he could see spirits sitting above people, and he could clear that out. And there wasn't specific mentions to the Fae or to the other crowd, but we think, he interacted with them too, and he knew how to stay away from them. That's where she learned, like, the iron. We used the horseshoes, and he said, fire was a preventative against them. He believed that keeping a fire in the home was part of keeping them out of the house, and you should never leave offerings to them and stuff like that. Stay away from them, kind of do your own thing and let them do theirs. And on the iron, he believed that the iron had power over them, because man works the iron. It's not the iron by itself that does anything. It's the man working it. We sort of like put our own kind of magic, I guess you would say, into it, and like in the name of God, obviously. Now, even though she's a worker, like I told you, she does everything in the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. So, in her eyes, she's a Baptist, even though she does these things, which seems strange, I know, to people who don't understand her ways. But so he taught her sort of the good side of it and how to protect and kind of stay out of their path. But he didn't call them Fae. Doing my research on our heritage and tracing it back to Ireland, and then learning about what they call fae and the different types. That's sort of where I have come up with this is what I'm seeing.
That's really interesting, the iron. So it's not the iron itself, it's the fact that it kind of shows that we have power to change. It's not a power, it's just a skill, and we're using, right, like heat, and we're changing it into a sword or whatever it might be. But that was the idea, is that we were changing something. So what that young lady or whoever that might be on that website, they kind of have that wrong, because having the cast iron pots itself is not going to cause a problem, at least not from how he saw things.
Right, from his perspective, right. It was us working the iron, and also the fire was a big part of it. So he believed that, fire was a gift from God, and it was the only thing that man alone has control over. So, they get to work with everything except that. And so that's like man's magic or man's way to defend themselves against those sort of things. And so, you use the fire to harden the iron and work the iron. So it's part of using the fire and naming it and claiming it is what she would call it. When you're working it, that makes it special or powerful against them. So yeah, it's interesting.
So what about their ideas of what they were or where they came from? Did you guys have any conversations, or did you ever find anything about what their thoughts were on that?
Okay, so I'll give you when I researched, I found a couple different things. So one is that they're the fallen angels, that when, God and Satan had their big showdown, the ones that were kind of in the middle and wasn't making a decision sort of got booted out with the rest of them. And then the Archangel Michael was like, we're losing all of them. They're all going out. And so he shuts the gates of heaven, and supposedly where they fell into the earth or into the air or into the water, they became the people of the earth, or what we call the she or the other crowd. So that's one belief. And then another is that they were the old gods of Ireland. So the Tuatha, have you heard of that?
Mm-mm.
So in one of the old books that we have in Ireland called, let's see, what's it called? I think it's called the Labar Gabala Aaron. I'm probably saying that wrong. Labar Gabala Aaron, but it translates to the Book of the Invasions of Ireland.
Mm.
And in that book, it talks about the Tuatha and how they supposedly they came on dark clouds through the air, and that they conjured up a mist that hid the island for 3 days. And well, anyway, it talks about the gods of Ireland, and these people became, I guess, the gods they worshipped. Supposedly they warred with another group called the Fomorians or Favorians. Some people pronounce it that way. And they come from underneath the sea, supposedly. And then there was also the Firbolgs or the Firbolgs. I'm not sure which way. I've heard it both. And that they also sort of had their own abilities too. And then after those three, so battled the Fomorians and pushed them back into the sea. They were supposed to be a darker race, but they also had special powers or whatever, I suppose you could say. And then the Firbolgs, they beat them as well. And then the Malaysians or Milesians, heard it both ways, they came, and that was man, supposedly. This is according to that book. And they battled with them as well, but man beat them. And so supposedly man got everything. They made an agreement with them. They were impressed with them, and man decided that they weren't completely bad. So they made a deal that man could have everything in Ireland that the sun shined on, and that it could have everything that it didn't. So the Ireland below the ground versus Ireland above the ground.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's really interesting. So that was the second idea. And then the third idea was that, now this is what my granny thinks. Now, I've not heard this anywhere else. This is her interpretation based on what she learned from her grandfather. So she believed, or they thought, that they were in the garden with us, in the Garden of Eden, when Eve did her thing and, messed everything up for us, supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
That they were in the garden, and we all got kicked out. So when they did that and the gates were shut, we were all kicked out, and they got thrown out with us, and that's why they sort of hate us or dislike us or have an aversion to us, because they blame us for them getting kicked out as well, when from their eyes, they didn't do anything, and we were just a human, and they're these magical beings, and, they just couldn't understand it, and it made them hate us. and supposedly they can't get back in until the end of time. This is by her version, when, you know, God comes back according to the Christian faith, and then they're dealt with at that point. It's creepy to see these things. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm fascinated with all this. I want to understand it and figure it out, but at the same time, I'm really scared of them. They're really scary. They really are. So
yeah, let's
go back and forth.
I can see why. Yeah, let's dig into some of that, Pam, if you don't mind. And like I said, you don't have to rehash every single detail of the two that you already told me, but if you wouldn't mind,
yeah.
I wanted to, on episode 100, I wanted to play them as you called them in, and you heard that's what I did. And I thought, well, maybe I'll chop it up and do it in succession, but I didn't. I just left it as is. I kind of liked it like that. But since we did the background on your granny and your great-great-granny, let's go ahead and go with that first memory, and when you're 5 or 6 years old and you're playing out in the dirt, if you wouldn't mind telling that one again.
Yeah, and just real quick, I wanted to tell you too. So my granny, that's a worker, she doesn't see them like I do. She has run across one or two in her time, and she can tell when they're around. So she doesn't see them like I do, but she certainly, has a gift for it, or a curse, I guess you could say, in that way as well.
So she didn't see these things, but what do you mean she has had a couple encounters, but she didn't see them? Like she sensed them and she knew it was them? How does that work with her?
She has had an experience when she was young. Now, she lived way back in the mountains, and like this is Appalachian Mountains, North Carolina, back in like the 30s, late 30s, early 40s, and she would have to walk these cows over one mountain to another every evening. She's like a 10, 11-year-old girl. So it was a different time, as you know. You know, you were expected to do things that you would never expect a young girl to do
right,
these days. But supposedly there was this one holler that was haunted anyway. She always felt leery or weird in that particular place, and people said that there was something there, and she hadn't seen anything up to that point. She's a 10 or 11-year-old kid, so she don't really know what all this stuff is, but she's coming through there with the cows, and when she gets to the gate, there's like this slip gap where you had to pull the thing down and go through. And when she starts to go through that gap, she hears a voice. She can't see the voice. She can hear a voice saying, is your load heavy? Which is such an odd thing to say, I know, but it just sent chills all over her. And she just ignored it and was stepping on through the gap. She opened it, started getting the cows through, and it repeated itself 2 more times. And she tells me that she feels like if she had answered it or talked back to it, that it would have had her, whatever it was. And I'm assuming that's what it was. But she gets the cows through, and she shuts the gate back, and she said she had such a fear, like she wanted to run and forget everything, cows and all. But she knew what would happen if she did, and so she kept on with the cows, and she looked back, and she said it looked like a man standing on top of the gate. He had hooves for feet.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, he had hooves for feet. She said he was about 4 or 5 foot tall, that he was kind of hairy looking. I mean, he was shaped like a man, but he had hair on him. Not thick hair, but like she could see the chest part like a man, but there was hair on his shoulders, around his head, and he had horns.
Oh, and, good Lord.
Yeah. Can you imagine? In a dark collar?
No. I'd have run left the cows just like she thought. Like, bye. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to get grounded the rest of my life, but it'll be worth it.
Yeah, me too. But this is like, late in the evening, it's starting to get dark. She can still see all right, but it's still that time of day where, you just get a feeling during that time of day. It doesn't take, you don't even have to be able to see these things to feel a weird vibe during those shifting of times. But anyway, she saw that, and she said she just turned around and kept on going. So seeing that particular one, and then one other time she saw something, but, since that time she doesn't see them like I do. She, I see them. I've had too many encounters with these things, and so she can tell as far as feeling, like she can sense, like the little man story. She couldn't see him, but she could sense that one was around. She has like this, I guess, from doing the work, and she calls it working with the ancestors. They alert her in that, I don't know how to explain it, but she's alerted that there's a presence, whether it be evil or, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
That's one of hers.
Yeah, you painted a picture just like, and I'm sure the book is 1,000 times better than the movie like usual, but, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, when they go through the wardrobe, the younger gal runs into a man that's basically half goat, and it's like exactly what you just described, so that's really interesting. Oh, it's on the fence. Like, what, why are they doing random stuff like that? It's so creepy.
Oh, she felt like it was trying to make a contract with her.
Oh.
She feels like, because based on what her granny did, that would have been her granny, not a great granny.
Yeah.
That actually worked with them. And she felt like it knew that somehow.
Mm.
And it was, that if she had agreed, like it's, and is your load heavy, like it was offering to help her. It was offering to work with her.
Right. And if she had accepted that would have been big trouble for her.
Right. That's the way she feels.
Right. That would have been like accepting the fate of, oh, I'm so sleepy, I'm going to go lay by this tree and take a nap.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness me.
I certainly feel that way, yeah. I completely agree.
Now, is your grandma that told you, just ignore them. Don't give them any time of day. Don't let them on. Don't let them know that you can see them. Don't let on that you even know they're even around. Like, as bad as it can be, just ignore them, right?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yep, that's exactly what she said. And that coming from the granddad, her grandpa, Nat, was his name, Nat. And he was the one that said, you don't want to interact with them. He didn't know for sure what they was either. That, this is their guessing and based on folklore and stuff passed down, trying to figure out, make sense of it. But they know for sure that you don't interact with them. And if you do, even it might seem like it's been nice to you, like offering to help you with the cows or your load or whatever that thing was doing, that they have an ulterior motive or that they'll hurt you inadvertently to hurt you.
Yeah, so your great-great-grandmother, it sounds like she was more the vein of the person with the website, like wanting to invite them in, and she's leaving things for them. And what was the word that you used for your great-great-grandmother? Was it Banfessa?
Yeah, Banfessa.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be an Irish word, but yeah.
But she was more the vein of she was trying to invite them in, and she was kind of, I hate to use the word conjure or something, but.
Yeah, no, that's right. Oh, I have some scary ones about her, absolutely. I don't know, it's interesting to have the dark and the light side of it.
Right.
It's the same side of the family.
Right. Isn't that interesting, though? It's almost like the yin and the yang, it almost goes kind of hand in hand, but that leads me, you took me right into my question. Do you think of what she was doing that you are having these experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a combination of what she meddled around with and maybe what my grandfather or my great-great-grandfather on the other side, what he was doing as well. Like it's a combination of a curse, a / gift. I really do. And when my granny, the one that's a worker now, when she realized I was seeing these things, that's when she started, drilling it into me. Don't go off with them. Don't look at them.
Yeah.
Don't let them know you can see them. Just, keep on doing your thing. And I've stuck by that, and I really do think it kept me out of trouble.
Well, and you know how in the Missing 411 books, and I'm not automatically tying this into anything. It's just anytime there's something I can say, hey, this is just an interesting point, I try to do that. So you know how in the Missing 411 books, one of the things that was found was that a lot of the people going missing were of German heritage. And this is just an interesting note right there. Well, period. That's an end point. An interesting point for you is that you have Irish and Native American heritage. So that's just, it's a separate point. I'm not trying to tie anything together, but that's just another kind of facet to the whole thing. So, I don't know where that was going. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there for folks to know, because that was something that you mentioned about your background.
Well, and trying to understand this, obviously as I've gotten older, I wanted to understand it and make sense of it, and so I've researched all sorts of things about Ireland and the folklore behind it and all that. And even the Native American side, they have their own, they have their own words for them. The Rock Clan, the Tree Clan, the Laurel Clan, the Dogwood Clan. There was even one called Thunder Beings. And so, that's
a cool one.
Well, pretty much Yeah, that's a cool one. But pretty much all over the world, just about all countries have a different name, but pretty much similar thing. So I find that interesting. And also, listening to podcasts like yours and Expanded Perspectives, that's how I found your show, was by listening to theirs. I've learned about the blood thing. You hear people talk about the Rh negative thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember, I mentioned that in the email.
Yeah.
So I gave blood just to see, well, obviously not just to see, but, to help out and to see. And I am Rh negative. I'm B negative. So I thought that may not have anything to do with it, but it's definitely interesting.
That's right. I totally forgot about that. You did mention that. Yeah. Yeah. See, another little thread. Like, we're not saying it's all, this thread goes to this thread. We're just saying it's another thread. We don't know, right?
Right. Absolutely.
What was I just going to say? It's probably good that I forgot, because it would take you out on a random tangent. I'm so sorry. That's what I'm really known for. Yeah, so we were talking about going back to the little man when you're 5 or 6 years old. I'm sorry. Yeah, pick up with that story.
No, like I said, I'm dying to talk to someone besides my granny who can understand this and help me figure this out. I mean, her outlook is just let it go and don't mess with it and let it alone. I mean, she wouldn't like that I'm even talking about them or saying their name. She's really paranoid about it.
Is there a vein of thinking that if you just talk about them that it will exacerbate things? Is that part of the Fae folklore or not?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
The Irish, that's why they call them the gentlefolk or the other crowd or the good people, is because, or the gentry, is because they feel like they're always around and just can't see them. They believe that they live a human life, or not human lives, but lives similar to ours. They're moving and going and doing things, and we may not know when we're right on top of them, and so they try to speak highly of them or not at all, so not to draw their ire. So, yeah. Oh,
Pam, I know what I wanted to ask you, and actually it's kind of a little random thing, but the idea of the Fae and the water, and the fact that the Fae can shapeshift. The idea of a mermaid, right? Mermaids are beautiful, and they can sing beautiful songs, and they'll beckon a man over to the water, and they'll sing to them, and then they grab him, and they drag him to the depths, to his death in Davy Jones' locker. So, all of this, if you really want to take the thread there, can be attributed to Fae. I mean, right? You're like, well, Fae like water, Fae can shapeshift, and they like to be tricksters, and whether or not it wanted to kill the man or not, well, he's dead, so it doesn't really matter. But, and the idea of the water also with, again, not trying to automatically assume anything, everybody. You can still email me if you're annoyed with my bringing up of this, but just whatever's happening to these people. And even just take the urban setting with Dave Paulides. I don't know what's going on there, but it's a little bit strange. So, anyhow. Yeah, right? You're like, well, I don't know if it's all connected, but it sure has some threads that kind of weave into other subjects.
And even with all the research I've done and all the, looking into the history and stuff, the family, and talking with my granny, and I still am not sure. I'm not saying this is for sure what they are. I'm just saying, based on everything I've looked at, this is the best I can come up with.
Right.
And I don't think they're demons. I don't think they're demons. I mean, I don't think, but, I could be wrong on that too. I've seen something that I think is a demon, but it looks totally different to what these things look like. So I don't think that's what they are. I think they're something else. So.
And without poking and prodding you on that story, would you rather have the demon or what you call the Fae? Oh man, see some of your stories see folks, that's what I'm talking about. You just never know until it happens to you. It's easy to listen to these stories but until it happens to you, you just get to toss up. You're like, it all kind of sucks sometimes.
Yeah, it does. But, gun to my head, if I had to pick, I would probably pick one of these things.
Wow.
I know they don't sound good, but, from what I can tell with whatever the demon thing is, now, I know I don't want to get too off on this, but these are things that I see hanging out of people. Like, I've seen it in various stages from where it's just sort of like attached to their back.
Oh my goodness.
I know, God, I know I sound like I should be in the hospital, but I promise you that I've been checked out every which way. My family can have me checked out. They can't find anything wrong with me, but at any rate, these things are scarier because they take over the body, I think. Like I was saying, I feel like they'll be in from the waist. I won't be able to see the bottom half of them, and they'll be hanging out the back, or they'll be like all the way in the body, but like just the head is hanging out. So, yeah.
No, I don't think that's crazy at all. In fact, I heard, it's been a long time, so I have no clue if I read it or I heard it on a podcast. I heard somebody say that exact thing. They're like, I can see when an entity is attached to someone. I can see the entity, and nobody else can see it. I've heard that exact same thing. Yeah, it gives me chills because I haven't heard that for a really long time till you just said that, Pam.
Well, I'm not seeing, I want to make it clear to people, too. I don't see stuff like this every day when I go out my door to go to work. I mean, I live a normal life. It's just occasionally they seem to cross my path or I cross their path. But the demon-looking things, I've seen those in, like, crowds of people. I had one encounter with one in a Walmart, of all places.
Well, that's pretty fitting. I mean, it is Walmart. Yeah, we all love to go there, but at the same time, we hate to go there, right? Okay, right. So I'm sorry. I'm like queen of the tangents. I'm so sorry. Can you just describe one? I mean, did you see a face? Like, what does it look like? Just really quick.
The demon thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, it's like this slimy looking, it's got like these horrible looking teeth. It's black and emaciated, kind of. It looks reptilian in a way, but the head, like from the eyes up, it kind of looks, like the eyes would kind of remind you of a human, but the rest of it looks kind of reptilian. Yeah, and they're real skinny and, they just look like the creepiest thing you can imagine, hanging off of somebody. It's like they're trying to get in the body. And that one experience in Walmart that I had is like one of the only ones I think I've run into where it had made it all the way inside, and I couldn't tell that's what it was, except, like it could fool even me, except the eyes. The eyes gave it away. Oh, it still creeps me out. And my husband was with me.
And that thing was on top, he was on someone's back, or it, not he. It was on someone's back, or?
No, this one at Walmart was actually, I think it was always, okay, here, let me tell you the real quick story. You can even cut this out if you don't want to bring this in with the other topic. But,
why not? I mean, this is, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so my husband, he's a big skeptic, and he don't want anything to do with all this, but being with me as long as we have, he's learned, he believes me, he's seen enough and been around enough, he knows that I'm telling him the truth, and he takes it serious when I say let's go, or I'm done, we go. But this day we were walking in Walmart, and he was who noticed it. So as we passed through the door, there was a guy coming out, and I'm rambling about what we're going to pick up. I'm not paying any attention to the people. It's not hanging out of his back, so it's not going to catch my attention.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband looks at the guy, kind of looks at him, I guess, and we keep moving. And as soon as we pass him, my husband's like, that guy was looking at you, he said, in such a way, he said, not like he was checking you out kind of way, but like he wanted to hurt you. He was looking at you like he wanted to hurt you. And it just gave me the chills. And I was like, well, that's weird. By this time, we're over in like the sock department. And we turn around, and he has come back in the store, and he is standing like within 3 or 4 feet of us. He's just standing there staring at us, and my husband turns around, and he's like, like I'm about ready to hit this guy. And as soon as I turn, because he's just standing there staring at us like he wants to kill me or something, and I turn around and I can see it then in his eyes. I know immediately that's what it is. There's just creepiness that comes in the eyes, and I was like, no, let's just go. And he's like ready to fight, he don't realize, he knows this guy's weird, but he don't know that. And
right.
I kind of just like get him out of the store, but it was so creepy. But somehow he knew that I could see it, and that had never happened before. And like I told you, I think that's one of the few that it was that I've run across, that it was all the way in, and I couldn't tell it unless, I could see its eyes. Or it worries me that even it was to a point where if it kept going, that I wouldn't even be able to see it then at all. It creeps me out.
Oh, see, that's a really interesting way to think about it. So what you're saying is, if you see someone with one of these things hanging off their back, it's still trying to get in. It's not all the way in. It's not, if you want to use the word possession or whatever you want to use, but this guy was really far gone.
Right. Yeah, this was the farthest gone I'd seen that I'd run across a person. There was a guy that came by my work that had one attached to him. He'd actually moved in with the girl that I was friends with. He was a family member of her husband, and he had tried to commit suicide 2 times and had survived the second one, and he had come back to live with them. They were trying to help him get him on his feet, and this was in bright daylight. I go out, I just happened to step outside, and he had come by with the husband, and it was hanging off of him, and it was like feet in, all the way in, all I could see was like the upper part of its body and its head hanging out.
Oh.
But I told her immediately. I was like, she knows I'm weird. She don't know any of the details.
Oh, you're not weird, Pam. That's not true at all.
Well, thank you. But she knows that if I, tell her get a priest or, like I said, I just told her that, you should get him to a church, and I feel like he still needs help. Side note, I've not told you this part either. I can see auras. I see like an aura around people, and she knew about that part. She didn't know about any of the other craziness, but she knew that I could tell if somebody, was sick or kind of ailing, that sort of thing. And so when I told her, I said, he needs to be in a church, and you need to talk to a preacher, and he needs help that way. So she got him some help, and I think they were able to help him. I mean, we didn't go into that, and I surely didn't tell her that.
Right.
But he seemed to straighten his life out and get better from what I can tell.
So can those things, can they see that you can see them?
Oh, Lord. Like that one that passed me in Walmart, that was the only one that seemed to know it before I even knew it was there. But yes, I absolutely do the same thing with these that I do with the others. I don't look at them. I don't gawk at them. If I happen to glance at one, I try my best to just be normal, do my thing, Pam, keep moving like nothing's happened.
Oh my gosh. Another reason to avoid Walmart, right? The people at Walmart. Goodness me.
Yeah.
And I'm not making fun of Walmart. I shop there all the time. Not that I'm not trying to get sponsored by them. I'm just saying I'm not making fun of anybody at Walmart. But sometimes when you go into Walmart, people they look just kooky. But that guy, never seen anything like that guy. So he was standing so close to you. Yeah, I could see where your husband is like, hey, you're puffing up on me. I'm going to puff up on you, right? Like you're not going to intimidate me or my wife. So.
Yeah, and that he's who noticed him at the first time. After he passed him, he was like, that guy was looking at you like he wanted to kill you. Not like he was checking you out, but like he was wanting to watch you die. And he never says stuff like that. He's the type of dude that's the opposite of me. He helps keep me grounded and try to look at the scientific side of things. And
did that make him less of a skeptic?
Yeah, oh yes. In the beginning, he was totally skeptical, and I completely understand this isn't something I dropped on him all at once.
Right.
I sort of dropped it in a little as we went.
You got to do that. I did the same thing. Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. So, but he trusts and knows me enough to he doesn't question it. He just we leave if there's a situation, we just leave. We don't interact because frankly, I don't know how to defend myself.
Well,
the iron,
right?
I do use.
Like how would you?
We do have a fire in the house. Yeah.
See, but that's for the Fae, though, right? Like, as far as demons, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. Prayers and asking God, that's the only thing I know for that. That's why I told her, I didn't tell her about what he was doing, but I said, he needs a priest and God, he needs a church where they can deal with that sort of thing. Because I don't have a clue. I'm just as afraid of those as I am these other things. The other crowd are themselves.
Rightfully so.
Don't even calling themselves. So,
yeah. Okay, I'm terrible. This is my second movie reference of the evening, and I apologize, but your description of them, minus they don't have half their heads missing. Have you ever seen the movie Constantine?
Constantine? see. Oh, yeah, I have
with
seen that.
Keanu Reeves.
I've seen that.
Yeah, you know when he's plunged down into hell and the demons are down there. Is that anything close to what you see when you see these things on people's backs?
I would say that they definitely move like those.
Oh.
Yeah,
like a bug. They move like some kind of a bug or something. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, I would.
That's...
They're not exactly like that, but they that vibe, yeah, for sure.
Oh. Wow. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for that tangent. I wasn't even expecting that one, but I just...
I know.
We just went down a fairy path and a spirit road, and it went to demons. I'm sorry.
Well, now you understand why I would prefer the other one.
I know. I totally understand. I would take it too.
Maybe I can reason with them or
right.
argue with them.
You're like, hey, cake and milk? Here you go. I mean, hell, if that's all I need to do is cake and milk, I got you there. I'll bake a cake every night.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Take my chances with them, yeah.
All right, I promise you I will be quiet now, and we're going to finish now, finally, the story of the little guy while you're playing in the dirt. You're 5 or 6 years old. I'm gonna be quiet now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I knew that was going to go off, but like I said, there's so much. There's just so much. But,
no, I'm sorry.
So,
okay, go ahead.
We're cutting wood. My dad logged and cut wood for a living, sold wood. And so I'm like 5 or 6. We're way back in the woods. Now, my great-granny was alive then, and my granny that's the worker that's older and still around, she was up with him cutting wood and logging. And so I was kind of left with my great-granny for her to watch me and me sort of just watch her too. I mean, she was older at this point too. And we were in this little shaded area, and I'm playing in the dirt, like I told you. And I noticed this little man. Now, this is my first encounter that I can remember of these otherworldly-like things. But he was darting around us. He was like warping at sweat beads. Like I said in the last episode, most of you out there will know what a sweat bee is, and they hurt or they're bothersome when they start to getting on you. It's the heat of the summer, and they're after us, and she couldn't stand them. She was covered up from the neck down. She always wore these long dresses and long stockings and a big hat. And he was whipping around us, killing the sweat bees. He was absolutely catching the sweat bees and killing them and, like, getting them off of us. So I wasn't afraid of him. I mean, I realized that it was odd and that this wasn't normal, I guess, but he didn't scare me. He didn't touch me or talk to me. He sort of did his own thing. It was after the sweat bees. And I'm sitting in the dirt playing. I have a little chest that had, like, plastic jewelry and stuff in it. And he sort of zeroed in on that little chest. And he didn't, like I said, didn't touch me, but he kind of got out in front of me and watched me play with that. Like he was fascinated with the little chest. And like I told you before, you know, I would bury it and then I would pretend like I was finding the treasure, and he would watch me do all that, and I'm sort of in my own little world. And then here comes my granny back down with the wood. My dad's still up on the mountain. She's coming down with a little truck, and she couldn't see him, but she knew something was up because she flew into both of us, and she told me not to talk to them, not to interact with them, you know, let them do their thing and us do their thing. And she fussed at my great-granny and was like, you know better. And my great-granny didn't say anything to her. She just sort of laughed. So I don't know if she could see him too or she knew he was there, but that was kind of my impression, and that she was being scolded for it. So that was the first one that I saw.
Yeah, and that was the one that when I came across the brownie description, I'm like, man, that's pretty darn close.
Yeah, well, yeah, let me describe him right quick. So he looked to be about 2 or 3 foot tall. He had on like a little brown outfit. It looked like something made, you know, like somebody would make at home. And he had on a little leather thing around his waist. It looked like a pouch or something like that. And he looked old, like he had a small little chin, but his eyes and his forehead was wider than the rest of his face. And he just looked ancient looking. He looked like an old man in a little body. And like I said, he seemed fascinated with the little chest, and I never got that chest back. That was the last time I saw that little chest. So I don't know if he made me forget it or if in all the commotion I just left it, but I just thought that was odd, and I wonder if he took it or if he wanted it.
Isn't that interesting to think of some of your your fake jewelry and that chest being in some otherworldly realm somewhere. That's pretty cool, right?
It is, yep. Yep. So, in the beginning I wasn't afraid of them. That changed as I got older.
Yeah, that was a very nice introduction to them. What was he swatting at the bugs with? Just his hands, or did he have something?
No, he didn't have anything in his hand. No, he was like smushing them with his hand.
Wow. Okay. yeah, just clapping his hands and.
Yeah, like running around and grabbing them. He was super fast. He was moving way faster than anybody should be moving. That was another thing that sort of gave me the idea that this is not normal. Yeah, he was whipping all around us. He was like something to see, moving all around us. Just killing sweat bees, killing bugs. I didn't see him eat them or anything like that. He was just killing them. Yeah, so that's what made me think he was doing it for her. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but it just seemed kind of odd. The whole thing seemed kind of odd. I know she hated them, and she didn't like being there anyway. That wasn't her favorite place to be. And I mean, we don't know that she did anything with them, but it just makes me wonder. I wish I could have had a conversation with her when I was older. I told you she died when I was in 5th grade, so I didn't really ever get to talk to her much about it. And her and my granny didn't get on well at all. So there wasn't a whole lot going on there between them. And she wouldn't have told my granny anyway because she knew how much she was against it,
Right.
And that would have been her dad who was the worker.
Her dad was the worker. Okay.
Yeah, her dad was the good worker. Now, it was her husband's mother who was the bad one. So you see how it was on the same side of the family? Of that one side of the family?
See? Yeah, another thread, right? Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So she knew all about that sort of stuff from being around him and then being around her husband's mama and her doing. But we don't know. I never caught her doing anything. That was the only time I ever saw anything weird, but she certainly had a weird relationship with my granny. So, yeah.
It's
an interesting side note.
Yeah, it certainly does seem that some people are, like you mentioned, the RH negative, and then you have the Irish Native American heritage, and there's kind of bullet points. So it seems like no matter how much someone wants to see something, much like, and this is the 3rd time that I brought this up, but the person in the website that has all, like this, list of things to do to see fairies, and if you want to have the fae come in your house, leave cake, and here's what you plant. It just seems like if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. Like you have to have this, or this, or this and this, or just this, like in abundance, whatever it might be. And then you are able to see these things for good or bad, is to be determined.
Well, Lord, my granny, she is just appalled to think that people invite these things in. We go out of our way to keep them out of our space.
Right.
Most people, they may be around them doing all kinds of things. I mean, who knows, and they don't even know it. It's creepy. People with kids doing it. I mean, it's just been turned into something cutesy, and it never was, according to the old people.
No.
There was never anything cutesy about them.
Absolutely not. And I will say that in, just the cursory research for trying to get to know the Fae a little bit more, so I didn't sound like a complete idiot when I got on to talk about them. It depended on the website or, of course, the book, which Paul goes into, hey, there's a really dark side of these things. Other websites, like you have seen, like your granny being appalled, I could see that because other people are literally, their entire thing is, you plant this, you do this, you act like this, you say this, and then they will visit you. And other people are going, why in the world would you want them to visit you? What are you doing?
Yeah, even the little man. I know how benign that sounds to everybody, but I mean, that was one of like I told you in the email, that one and only one other one have I not felt just terror.
See, but
I'll take that back, 3. Maybe 3 that I didn't just feel like I needed to run and hide.
See, but how different though, Pam, would that have been? So you were 5 when you saw him, 5 or 6. How different would that be? So say you had, and it's hard to put yourself in this position. I totally understand because I'm like that too. I saw the shadow people when I was 12 or 13, which is quite a bit older, but I can say I don't know how I would react because your brains are different when you're little versus, now when we're in our 30s. Yeah. how would I react now? How would I process that now? How much worse would I have slept, now if I would have gone through that? And I know that, of course, you have ongoing experiences, whereas I just had the one, which we will get to. But I did find it kind of interesting that there's this dichotomy of people, either they're like, look, you need to do what you need to do to keep them out. There's iron, there's, whatever, sorts of, there's different prayers that I saw that Paul said that you can say to keep them out. Whereas other people are planting plants and they're looking for lights. Oh, if you see lights among the plants, that's the fae folk. Of course, if you're in your neck of the woods or even Ohio where I live, that's called a lightning bug. So we don't want to automatically assume it's always the fae folk, right?
Yeah. And based on my experiences too, I think there's different classes of these things. I've seen something that I think is like an elemental, what we would call an elemental, that's not exactly what these things are, that I don't even put them in the same class. I think there's something totally different. And I'm not saying they would be nice and that you should interact with them either, but I don't think they even pay any attention to us. They sort of do their own thing unless you really cross them in some way. I don't think they'll harm you. And I'll, if you want me to, I'll explain one of those right quick if you want me to.
I would love that.
So the first one I saw of these was like a stick-looking man. He literally just looked like a super skinny man. Like it would remind you of what a stick would look like if he growed arms and legs and had a head. I was in the woods. I was with my dad and we were hunting. He we growing up in the Appalachian Mountains. He's kept me out in the woods and stuff, and we were going squirrel hunting. I didn't like killing the squirrels. He did that. I just went with him. Anyway, we're moving along, and I see this thing. He comes out of one tree. He completely was inside of a tree. He came out of one tree and moved and went into another tree. And he was sort of just like tree hopping, just going from one tree to the next tree to the next tree, just, on down, just moving on down the holler. And I've seen another one like that around our property, but I wasn't afraid of it. I feel like that was what an elemental. That was probably an elemental of the earth. And then I've also seen another thing in the water that's nothing like the one thing, but it just looks like water in the shape of a head, and the upper body came up out of the water.
Oh, wow.
And it was made of water. It just looked like water. And I wasn't afraid of that either. It just sort of came up and then went back down in the stream. And I've seen those a couple of times as well. And I think those are totally different. And those might be what people are trying to interact with, but they're getting the other things instead.
Interesting.
So,
wow.
That's just my take on it. I don't know for sure, but you know what I'm saying? I think there's a difference between the elementals and the fae.
Right.
And maybe even the lights that people will claim to see, maybe that's the ones of the air. I've not seen that particular kind, but that's my guess.
What do you think about the whole being drawn there? Like I was telling you about Clint's story about there's the light, which you just mentioned, and then the water, which you just mentioned, is right? Like that's all tied in. And he needs and he wants so badly to get down to that water.
Oh, I totally think that was one of the bad ones. I don't think that was an elemental. I think that was one of them. That was probably like the one I saw in the river or similar, and that it was trying to lure him out there, but he couldn't see it. Just like how, I explained in that last story, those kids were looking at it like it was something they wanted to play with. They were moving towards it. They were happy. They absolutely were not seeing what I was seeing. It was showing them something different or, doing something to pull them to it.
Right.
Making them want to go to it. So,
and the father did not see them, which people in your own family are just like the dad. They don't see it. They have no clue. So, okay, so we've kind of teased that now. So maybe they haven't heard episode 100. Would you mind touching on that one? The Fae in the Water, which,
sure.
I'll put in the show notes. Somebody drew a picture of, what their representation of this story. And I wanted to ask you while I have you on the line, what you thought of that drawing, of what someone did of that story after they heard episode 100.
Yeah, it was really cool, and it did remind me of it, except it was taller, it was more, human-shaped like us, and I couldn't see the bottom of it. It just come up out of the water, it was more female-shaped, like a 5 foot, about 5 foot female coming up, as best I could tell.
Like a slim build. Body. Yeah.
Yeah, and the teeth. I mean, he got the teeth, like its lips were I think that's just the way they are. Like, it wasn't showing its teeth. I think as they move, that's just their teeth show.
Oh.
Like at the mouth.
That's almost worse. Like they just can't help it.
Yeah, like they explain, like a piranha, how a piranha is kind of showing its teeth as it moves through water. You've seen photos of that. Like that, and their teeth are serrated. Their teeth are, all the teeth are sharp. There's no, like that little guy looked way friendlier than that I saw.
Oh my God. That is something else, because go look at the picture, folks, in the show notes right now. I will put it in there. It is that picture is terrifying enough. So I have a question. Why do they need serrated teeth? And by the way, I didn't read this in the list because I didn't want to bore you and everybody else with the list that I found of all these different fae, but some fae are known to be cannibalistic. So why else would they need serrated teeth if they weren't eating some pretty gnarly stuff?
Yep, I completely agree.
Yeah.
And just about all of them have that kind of teeth. All the ones that I've run across, the ones in the woods, the ones in the water.
Really?
Yeah, they have that kind of teeth that it's not pulled back like that one. That one was unique to that. But they all have the sharp-looking teeth.
Oh, my gosh.
Each tooth, not fangs. I'm not talking fangs. Like, each tooth is just like rows of, top and bottom row of, like fangs all through the mouth instead of just the eye teeth.
Oh, yeah. Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? You're like,
Yeah, you see how these things are terrifying?
Yeah.
I mean, it's creepy.
Yeah, that's not good.
So, I don't know I wondered myself would he have just been like one of those kids that are there one minute and gone the next? That particular encounter made me think about the 411 thing so much. The way people say that they looked behind them and the kid was there and then gone the next. And,
because the way that you were telling that story, it was like if the dad wasn't there, both of the kids sounded like they were just booking it down to the water. Just like Clint did. He's like, I just want to go to the water. It's so happy and wonderful and yay, let's go.
Yeah, they were not afraid. They were interested. They were wanting to go play with it or check it out. Yeah. Whatever it was
and they could see it. And that is really, but did they see what you saw? Maybe they saw it as something different, and insert 100 different versions here, but maybe they didn't see what you saw.
Yeah, I don't think they saw what I saw. I think any kid that saw what I was seeing would have been scared.
It's like the creature It.
Take me away.
Yeah, it's like seeing it when its teeth are like full bore, like about to bite your arm off. Like poor little Georgie. That's not something a kid would go towards.
No, it absolutely is not.
That is one of the first things, and I'm so happy that you agreed to talk to me in person. As close to it in person as we can get, but because that was one of my questions, because in your story, you are fishing on a rock and your husband is up the stream and you call it the thing is coming up the river, and it's got the long black hair and it looks hideous, and you're like, okay, so I know my protocol is to ignore it. So you're trying to ignore it and you're like, la la la. Yeah, you're like, I'm going to keep doing the thing. And you're like, oh, good God, there's a guy with 2 kids and they're walking towards it. And it sounded like it happened pretty darn quickly. Like the boys, you could tell they saw it and they're like kind of talking about it, and they're like, I can't remember, were they pointing at it, or how did you know for sure they saw it?
Yeah, they had sticks. They were playing around. They both had a stick, and they were like batting the sticks and playing with the sticks. And the littlest one saw it first. He started pointing with the stick and moving towards the water. And then the older one kind of looked, and he, same thing. He walked on it too, and they just started moving down towards the water. It came on up out of the water. It came towards them. I mean, they were within feet of this thing, right on the edge of the riverbank, and thank God the dad he was playing with a phone. He had his phone. He was playing with it. And he finally looked around to see where they were at and saw they were near the water. And he sort of, hollered at them and made them come on up back on the trail. And like I said on the last show, it just watched them go. Like, it was creepy to watching them it just had this longing look on its face. And it just sort of went back down and moved on up the river like it was on to something else. So,
something that, and especially in talking to you tonight up until now, and realizing how ingrained this is in your life and in the rule, the quote unquote rules that you were imparted upon to follow early on. I remember in your call that you said that you were realizing that the boys were going down there. They see this thing for whatever reason. They're not terrified of it. They're not turning around and running from it. And the dad can't see it. And you're actually at this point, you stood up. You were sitting on the rock, and then you're standing up because you're like, you know what? I'm going to have to holler. I'm going to have to scream because something really bad is going to happen to those boys if I don't take action. And that was really striking to me because especially now, I'm kind of realizing how, like I said, how ingrained this was in you to not do that. You don't call attention to yourself. You don't let it know that it is even there. So, that was a really poignant part of the story for me, is the fact that you were kind of like, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to have to take action here.
Oh, God. Yeah, it was one of the only times that I nearly had to give myself away, because, I just couldn't have watched that. I mean, I just couldn't have. But I was waiting until the last second because I didn't want it coming my way. I mean, I know how with the iron and the fire, we use that to keep them out of our area, but I don't know that would do anything to them. I mean, if one noticed me and knew that I was seeing it, I don't think I would have any protection against myself even with that. I think that just deters them and keeps them out of your house, off your property. They don't like it. They kind of stay away from it. But I mean, what's it going to do if I'm face to face with one? I don't think it'd protect me. It may make them uncomfortable, but I just feel helpless. I feel like I don't have any power against them except to keep to myself and not let them know. Unless somebody else out there's got something, I'm open to suggestions.
Well, see, and that's the next question of the story, and it's a two-parter, is if you had to scream and say the being in the water, the fae, whatever you want to call it, looks over and goes, really, Pam? Really, you had to go there? Like, what happens to you? And then the other part is, it turns its attention back to the kids. Maybe you didn't scream. Okay, let's just assume you didn't. And they keep going down to the water. What's the next chapter there, right?
Exactly.
The dad can't see it. Is there the whole, what do they call that? Glamoring or glamour or mind erasing, right? With the fae where, things are forgotten, which, hey, guess what that ties into? Alien abduction. Sorry, but it does.
It does.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not assuming anything. I'm just saying there's another thread. People are frozen and they're trying to wake their spouse and they're like, wake up, there's little grays in my room. And anyhow, that's a whole nother tangent. We're not going to go down that route, but these roads seem to kind of connect somehow, and I don't really know how that is, but we can kind of assume all day what might have happened or guess what might have happened, but it's just interesting that, you took that next step and you're like, well, I'm just going to face what I have to face because those two boys can see whatever the heck is in that water, and it's so interesting to think of what did it look like to them? That's what I really would love to find out someday, is that one of those boys, maybe by the grace of goodness me, they hear this tale and they're like, you know what? My goodness, that sounds like me and my brother when I was down by the so-and-so and we saw the this and this. And it wasn't a creature with sharp teeth and long black hair. It was, I don't know, friendly bear in the water. I don't know. It's like insert 1,000 different things that a kid could find wonderful and to walk down to. It wouldn't be what you saw.
There's absolutely no way. If the little one might have been, too small to know the difference, the older one would definitely have known. That thing is scary.
Yeah, how old, I think you said in the recording, how old was the older one, if you could guess?
Yeah, he looked like maybe, I don't know, 7. Maybe 7, 6 or 7, and then the littler one looked like maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah, the older one would have been like, no, that's terrifying. Exactly. Let's go. I'm never going to sleep again.
Yeah, Absolutely. I think so. And back to the stray thing you were talking about. So my granny would call that the stray she just calls it the stray, where they lead you off or they make you think you're somewhere you're not, or like there's folklore handed down through her family where like they'll make you think you're about to step in a road, but it's really a river.
Oh my God.
So,
no kidding.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard of that. Okay.
Yeah.
So if that's not another thread, right, to missing 411, sorry guys, but it is. So you think you're stepping on a road, but it's a river.
Yes.
I've never heard of that.
Yes, ma'am. It's the stray sod. The Irish call it the stray sod, or
oh my gosh.
See, there's another something they call it too, but I can't think of it right off. It'll probably come to me, but she just passed down to her, it was just called the stray, and that's when they put something on you. You won't know your own land. You won't know your own people. You're totally, they do something to you, it totally turns you around, and you can't get out of it. Like, you've probably heard this with the tale about turning your clothes inside out.
Yeah.
That gets you out of it, or if somebody else runs across you, that supposedly will get you out of it if they can see you and they can kind of pull you out of it. But the clothes thing, she didn't think that was silly. She thought that was, you're focusing on something. It sort of somehow changes the state you're in, your mind, focusing on turning your clothes inside out and, doing the buttons different, that would somehow break it that way, that it didn't really have nothing to do with the clothes. It was getting your mind turned in a different direction.
But you did that to yourself. You took your own clothes off and put it happened to you?
Oh, no, I didn't do the clothes thing. Luckily, I had a friend with me that helped me, and I didn't have the same exact thing happen to me, but a similar thing, to where my vision started to go. I couldn't see. It was like everything was going dark, and I wasn't sure where I was at. And if my friend hadn't been there,
yeah, time for Shannon to shut up. I'm gonna, if you're okay with telling this, then yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I went on a trip to Ireland. I've been twice. It's our homeland, and frankly, I wasn't going to let these things scare me. I've seen the ones over here. I wasn't for sure if it was the same things that are over there, but I thought, I'll do what I do here. I'll, keep living life the way I want to. I'll look away if I run into one. I'll keep my nose down, and I want to see what they call, home or the old country. I wanted to see it for myself. So I went with a friend of mine. She knows about all the creepy things, every bit of the creepy things. This is my one friend that knows everything that I see. So we had a game planned that if I gave her the word, we would get out. Now, we stayed in Ireland for 2 weeks, and we had been to the same place. It was the Hill of Tara. Have you heard of the Hill of Tara?
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
Well, it's in the County Meath. It's near Newgrange, that end of Ireland. And we were like staying about, 20 minutes close to, outside the Hill of Tara. So, there's a big walking trail. You can go and walk there, and it's just really interesting. And we had been every day and walked there. I hadn't seen anything at this point. I had seen absolutely nothing. So I was feeling comfortable. I was feeling like I was safe. I'd been to this place before. This was our last day in that part of the country. We were going to be moving over to County Clare. And so we wanted to go one last time and walk around before we headed out. So we've been there before. We feel safe. We're walking around, and there's a place on the back side that's supposed to be called a fairy tree. Well, yeah. But I hadn't seen anything weird around it, so I wasn't afraid of it. After we passed those 2 trees, she had actually left a coin. She thought it would be funny and cute to leave a coin. I didn't like it, but, we went along with it. And as soon as we passed those 2 trees, it was like a light coming up behind me. Like I could see like a light coming from behind me. And I turned and looked, just turned around and looked to see what was going on, and there was one moving towards us. Now, I immediately gave her the word. I gave her the word, let's go. She got the point, and we started moving. It come after us. I don't know what about us got its attention, but something did. I don't know if it was her leaving the coin or if it was just the wrong time and place, but here it comes. And I dropped my hair clip. I bent down and picked it up. And about the time I picked it up, I felt a sharp pain on the right side of my head. It was like somebody popped me in the head, or like if somebody jerked your hair really, really hard. And it was immediate. It was like my vision, you know, I looked around obviously to see what was going on, and it was close to me, within touching distance. And I got to look at it before I started to go like dark. I didn't lose it completely. It was just all of a sudden my environment was changing. It was like a tunnel closing in on me. And I told her, I said, I can't see. It's so scary. I said, I can't see. You're going to have to help me. I don't know what, it's, you know, something's happening to me. And so she got me by the arm, and she leads me down through there. And I couldn't see it anymore at this point, not even me, but I could feel it. Felt like it was with us, and it was just waiting for me to be helpless. It was just waiting to grab me. Thank God, you know, I was praying. She was praying. We got onto the car, and we got away from it. It didn't get me, but I absolutely believe if I'd been by myself, if she hadn't been there, that it would have took my vision or whatever it did to me, and nobody would have heard from me again. It would have done whatever they do to people. I really believe that. But to describe it, it looked similar to the ones over here, but different. It was snake-like. It moved like a snake. Its skin was like this white pale color, but it had splotches on its skin. It was in the shape of a man. It was white in the shape of a man. It had black splotches on it, like a snake's skin, but white with black. And the head of it even looked like a snake. It had like horns. I mean, you know, features of a snake. It would remind you like of a cobra's head, like the forehead was prominent and the horns peeled back, and it had these green eyes with like black slits. And yeah, it was terrifying, and it felt old and ancient. And yeah, it was absolutely terrifying. But thank God as we got on down the road, I mean, she's flipping out, I'm flipping out. We don't know what to do. Take me to a hospital. What else can you do? I mean, your vision's going off. Maybe even though I had an interaction with this thing, I still was worried. But the farther we got away from it, it started to wear off. And I could see a little better. Couldn't see great, but it started slowly. My vision started to come back. But while I was in that state, things looked different. Like I could look up at the sky and it looked like something swirling in the sky, like what you'd think a vortex would look like, or like even looking at a tree, it was like I could see into the tree. Like the tree moved, like the walls moved. Now, we were with her boyfriend, who's her now husband at the time. He knew nothing about it, and she just sort of got me upstairs. He didn't know anything about my weird stuff. It would have totally freaked him out. So she got me upstairs, and she told him I wasn't feeling well, and she sort of kept an eye on me and kept checking on me. And she even says to this day that it was like I was a drunk or something, like it drugged me or did something to me, like it touched me. And all it took was it touching me or whatever it did to my head to just make me so out of it. I would have been like a helpless kid if she hadn't been there to help me. So yeah, I think I got a taste of whatever that is when they alter your environment or your senses.
Wow. Thanks, Pam, for telling that. That cannot be easy. Do you think that for those moments, and I do want to go back to how long you think it lasted, but do you think that for that time that you were partway in its world where it wanted you to be?
I'm not sure. I wonder if whatever it did to me, it made me be able to see more of its world. That, you know, they say in the folklore that their world runs right alongside of ours. Yeah. That the only reason, you know, supposedly the only reason they care about this world is because there's the openings to their world on it. And they don't care what happens to us. They don't want anything to happen to it for that reason. Right. Because it's their way. They move in and out supposedly on it. But yeah, it was like I could see into the grain on the wood, or, you know, into the wall. It was like it was shifting. It was such a trip. It was like somebody drugged me. But I had no alcohol. I'm not on any kind of medicine. I mean, there was absolutely nothing in my system that would warrant that reaction. And I was completely fine. I mean, we were walking. We were exercising up until that point. I didn't feel sick. I mean, I don't think it had anything to do with me. It was all about whatever it did to me that made me feel that way. So yeah. And I could hear like, oh, it was creepy. I could hear like chanting, or like, you know, like them, making sounds and noises that I didn't understand. It was like another language or something, but like I could hear them all over the island. where, you know, like no matter where we were at, I could hear them. It was so creepy.
Oh my gosh. So, I mean, for the experience, it wasn't just that one, and I was making notes while you were talking. I'm just kind of, I don't think mesmerized is the word. I think traumatized is more the word, but the snake-like shape of a man, it's got horns like a cobra, it's got green eyes. So it wasn't just that one thing. You actually heard other quote-unquote
sounds, yes.
beings or things, kind of assisting it in its quest or whatever the heck it was doing to you.
Yeah, I mean, you've probably heard of like the fairy host, where they talk about how they'd run through the sky.
Yeah.
And like there'd be a host of them. That's what it reminded me of, what it might be, or, you know, like a horde of them moving, you know, and yeah, like I could hear that part. Maybe I was able to hear that part, hear and see bits and pieces of their world alongside us. I really don't have a clue. It may have just been that it messed with me just to mess me up and make me vulnerable to whatever it had planned for me. It could be that too. That may not be the case, but it definitely messed with me. Yeah.
So, see, but that goes against what I was saying in the beginning, and it was obviously just, a cursory search of the faith folk as you leave things for them. Your friend was leaving coins, which seems a very nice thing to do and not offensive, at least to us, or from what I've read so far, they don't find coins offensive. So have you looked back and gone, what in the world set that off? What caused that?
Yeah, I wondered that. And she wasn't doing the coins. In her mind, she was like trying to placate them. Like, we made it this far, you've not had any interaction with them. Let's leave a little something, like, you know, like how the Irish would leave the milk and stuff. Like, let's be good. We're good. That's the only thing I know. I mean, I didn't see it anywhere around us. It was like, whatever, I don't know what that light was, if that was it coming in, or if it just happened to be coming in from wherever it was coming from at the same time we passed by there. Or, you know, it's something about the coin set it off. I'm not sure. I don't know, but it definitely moved on me. It was me that it was, you know, targeting right off the bat. And she couldn't see it. She had no clue. I mean, she couldn't see anything around us. She said she felt like a nervous vibe, like she immediately felt like she needed to get us out of there before I even told her I can't see.
Okay.
She felt frightened.
Wow. Okay, that was my next go-to was, what about her? So she felt the instinctual, like, let's get the heck out of Dodge. But that was as far as it went for her. So it went for you. And again, we can try and assume that's because of your background, right? And what your great-great-grandma was into and what she was doing, what he was doing. Your great-great-grandfather, right? Boy, that one's throwing me for a loop because I wasn't expecting that one. I took all the notes and I'm like, wow, that really goes against, I don't know, Faye 101, which is you're leaving things, you're being very respectful. You weren't defacing trees or moving rocks or any of the Faye 101 things that you're not supposed to be doing. So, okay, so you see the light, and I'm trying to kind of get the picture of it. So you see the light and it turns into this snake-like thing, or those are two separate things?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it came out of that or not. I just know, like, out of the side view, it was like somebody shining a light, you know, like a headlight coming my way or something like that. And when I turned, it was already moving toward us. So I didn't see the light after that point. It wasn't like there was a light that faded away. It was just all of a sudden, boom, it was there, and it was headed my way, and I was like giving her the word, let's go, and that was when it popped me. I don't know if it hit me or I don't know what it did, but I felt pain in the side of my head. I felt, it wasn't like a touch, or it was just like a sharp pain, like if someone jerked your hair really, really hard, or just popped you in the side of the head. And immediately my vision started to go. So
that must have been terrifying. I mean,
it was so scary.
I wasn't expecting that one, to be honest with you, Pam. That's a pretty, I mean, that is an incredibly intense experience. How long did that last? From when you saw the light and you're like, okay, that's not normal, to when you guys were able to physically leave? How long was that? Do you know?
Yeah, so like I said, we were about 20 minutes from the Hill of Tara, so it took about 20 minutes for us to get home, and like as soon as we got in the car and we kind of got down the road a little bit, the light, I stopped going, so I thought I was going to go completely dark where I couldn't see anything.
Oh my God.
It was like we got to a point where it started receding and I could start to see a little bit, and, I was still flipping out, but, I was glad that I could start to see a little bit. But even she got me on home, she got me upstairs, and I was out of it like the whole night. I mean, plumb into late in the night, she would come back and check on me. Like hours later, I was still having like residual effects of whatever it did, where I could see, my vision came completely back, but things looked wonky. Like I said, like looking up at the wall or the tree or the sky, it's just weird. It was, and like the ravens, there were these ravens going off, and it sounded like they were like talking to each other. I don't know how crazy that sounds, but like there was communication going on.
And that's the whole time, so from the time that the light, or that you felt the pain to the time that you got to the car, these ravens are going off?
Yeah, no, okay, so when it hit me in the head and we're going to the car,
mm-hmm.
The birds, I could hear the birds too. There's ravens everywhere there. But yeah, the birds and like the talking and the noise and like other things moving and making sounds, like these horrible sounds in like a language that I don't know or understand. Yeah, I could hear all that and continued to hear that into the night. Like it wasn't just during that experience. Like once we got all back home. Yeah. Once we got back to the rental, I could still hear like stuff going on. I don't think it was that same one. I think I was just, either it just totally messed me up, or I was hearing like parts of its world or the other ones there. It sounded like a horde of them. It's like they were everywhere. And like the ravens, it was like the ravens were communicating or just in with them. I could hear the ravens so loud compared to when, I wasn't in that state. It was so strange. I can't tell you what it was, to be honest, but I can just give you what it sounded like. I don't know what it was doing or what they were doing.
So again, like I mentioned earlier, total conjecture, but if your friend wasn't there and you're in that state, do you think you would have stayed in that state and just wandered around perpetually in between our world and theirs? Or what do you think that situation would have been like? Total conjecture, of course.
I absolutely don't think anybody would ever saw me again. I think whatever they do to people, that it was going to do to me or take me away, or, whatever it is that they do, I think that would have been the end of me, that I would have been taken away to wherever I was getting glimpses and hearing pieces, sounds of, or it would have killed me, or, I would have just been no more. They don't like that we see them. I really don't think they like that. They don't want anybody to see them. They don't want anybody to know what they're up to. And it really aggravates them and makes them mad if they figure out you can see them. Like in one of the folk tales, they get this girl to help this one deliver a baby or something, one of the fairy babies, and she accidentally gets ointment in her eye, and after that, she can see them moving around them. And she makes the mistake of speaking to the male one, that she sees him in the market, and she speaks to him and is like, how is the missus and the baby? And he realizes she can see him, and he plucks her eye out in the story, in the folklore.
Oh.
Yeah. She couldn't see him anymore, obviously. And he even asked her, which eye are you seeing me with? And she told him, not having a clue, I guess. I mean, this is folklore. I don't know if this is true, but that was one of the ways of them passing down to, you don't let them know if you see them. You keep to yourself, and hopefully you get by.
So, do you think that, and just going down the rabbit hole again, but do you think then that people, so speaking about backgrounds and bloodlines and heritage and blood types, people that maybe, a lot of people don't even know their blood type or a lot about their backgrounds. It's not anything to, poke fingers at or think it's funny, or it just is what it is. A lot of people don't know. It's just one of those things. They happen to go fishing one day or hunting one day or hiking one day, and they're by themselves. And because they are of this heritage or blood type, they are more susceptible to maybe their anger or their intentions, and they are more easily seen by these things. And then that is why maybe people of German background, or like yours, Irish/Native American background, have much more interactions with these. And if you're alone, your chances of coming out of the woods or wherever you might be are drastically reduced. I mean, and that's really creating a very broad paint stroke for things, right? But I mean, if we're following that vein, that's kind of what it seems like.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe that's why it didn't like me, or, you know, who knows? Maybe it was my blood type. Maybe it was something about me that it could, you know, it had some indication that that I was aware of it. Who knows? I've wondered that too. Like, how did it know? Or why did it target me and not her?
Right. Yeah, because she didn't even see it. And she was the one leaving the coins. Like, you weren't even, at this point, like you said, you've already been there for a while. You're like, hey, I feel pretty comfortable. Yep. And you had been down there before. You had hiked that trail before during your time there. That also stuck out to me, because it's not like you all of a sudden went, like I said, and moved a big boulder and they're like, okay, lady, you moved my house, now you're going to pay for it. Right. There was none of that.
Right. No. And the Hill of Tara is not like, you know, there is like one of the, I guess you'd call it the mound, and there's a stone there, the Leah fell. I mean, it's like commercialized. I wouldn't have expected to see one there, is what I'm saying. Don't get me wrong, it still had a very old world feel, and it was incredible to see, but I haven't been there already. I felt safe there. Like I told you in the email, I don't see these things. I've never seen one in a group of people. The closest I've seen one to people was the little boys. And it coming up through there and people in that park. Usually I run across them like, you know, way in the woods or early in the morning going down a mountain road, you know, or I do see them more often during like Beltane or Beltana around May the 1st when winter goes to spring. And around Halloween, I take Halloween off and I stay home. There is absolutely something to that. I've seen them moving.
You've seen a what? I'm sorry.
Like they're moving. It's like they're moving. I see them more during that time of the year than I do any other time. And they're carrying stuff. Like, what are they carrying? Like, they will have like sacks and like they're moving with stuff. It does not make any sense, but that's what they look like. I see them moving during that time. And yeah, I'm way more careful.
And isn't it interesting, because the one that you saw on the fence, or not you, I'm so sorry, your grandmother, he said, oh, your load looks heavy, like he wanted to help, right?
Is your load heavy?
Yeah, isn't that strange? That's another tie-in. So, but you see them moving things, like they're almost like they're running from something.
No, like they have like bags on their back. Like they're, you know, like they're moving from one place to the other, like they're carrying stuff. You know, like they're moving, they're, like they're walking with, they're moving through the forest, or they're crossing the road, they're moving with like a purpose, like they're going somewhere. And I've seen them carrying stuff, like carrying a bag, or like it's something slung over their shoulder. Like you wouldn't think these things would need a bag. Or whatever it is, you know. I don't know.
Right. If you're an otherworldly being, why would you need a bag, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally can agree with that. So, Pam, what do you think about the whole, you know, the limestone or the granite or the basalt or the water? Like, you know, what's the tie in there? And do certain people probably need to take much greater care when they are around areas like this?
Yeah, I definitely see them more around like deep woods, in the water, like caves. The most recent one I saw was on a fishing trip about a week ago on a walking trail, and this one was inside of a cave. It was just standing in the entrance of like a cave, and what caught my attention was the silver eyes. Some of them have these silver looking eyes. And I could see the eyes in the dark of the cave, and had never even noticed that cave. And we'd been on that walk a million times down that particular fishing trail, and had never noticed it. And boom, there he was. But
this is a week ago.
Like, yeah, this was last Sunday.
So a trail that you've been down plenty of times.
Mm-hmm,
and
many times.
And you guys are going down there to fish, or you're going on a walk?
Yeah, no, it's a walking trail. People walk. We saw all kinds of people walking their dogs, but it runs along a little river and with great trout fishing. And my husband's all about the fishing. Mm-hmm. I grew up on the river, so I've had my share of the fishing. So I kind of just I stay with him. I stay close to him, and I'll, listen to a podcast or read a book. I stay with him. We usually when we're around people, I don't have to worry about that sort of thing as much. So, that's how it happens. I get into a comfortable little phase and I'm feeling safe, and boom, I run into one. That's usually how it goes. But yeah, we've been down through here many, many, many times. I was very familiar with this trail, and then him or me, either one, had never noticed this little cave. And I mean, as soon as I saw the eyes, I walked back to him, and he kind of got the signal that I was seeing something. And so we kind of got a little on past, and I mentioned the cave over there. I said, you see that cave over there? Did you notice that before? And he was like, no, I've never noticed that before. I even took a picture of it to see if he would show up, just like we're touristy fishermen. I'm snapping photos. I wasn't obvious about it. I'm careful. I've learned how to be careful, but they never show up in a photo. But, yeah, him or me, either one, had never noticed this cave, but it was standing in the entrance of the cave, and there were people walking dogs, and so it was on the other side of the river, but this is a little river. Like, you could walk across this little river. This one's tiny. This is a trout fishing stream. So, yeah. But they like the outdoors. They don't like being around us. I really believe that. I don't see them in towns. I don't see them, in crowds of people. They're usually off in the mountains, or, like I said, on a dark country road, or like around those times of the year. I live in the mountains. We live on top of the mountain. I'll be traveling to work. I have to drive about 45 minutes. So occasionally I'll see them moving during those times of the year. I'll see one on the road, or, we'll be walking or going somewhere or doing something, and I'll happen to see one passing by or, moving along. So yeah, definitely people should be more aware. And I know how crazy I sound to people out there, and it's really hard to talk about this stuff knowing, a lot of people probably think I'm certifiable, but people should know. I felt like I should talk about this because people need to know. Even if they don't believe me, maybe in the back of their mind when they're in these places, they'll, my story might run across their mind, and they might be a little more careful or keep one closer eye on their kid. Just be safer, I hope. That's all I hope. Yeah.
Believe me, Pam, you're not the only one. And here's the thing. If, I have a daughter, and she's about to be 10, and say she can see these things, but I can't. And from what you've said, they're an attractant to a lot of people. Obviously, the boys were very attracted to it. I don't think that they saw what you saw, but they wanted to get down to it and be closer to it. They had no problem with it. So that's a really good warning to heed is, hey, maybe your kids, maybe your cousins, maybe your brothers and sisters see things that you don't, and just keep a close eye on them. So this thing in the cave, you see it standing in the cave, and you can see it plain as day, right? And it's got silver eyes, which is an interesting detail. You snap a picture, and it's an interesting point that you saw it plain as day with your eyes, but it will not show up on any picture.
I've tried so many times, very carefully, just, playing the oblivious person.
Right, I'm going to look this way. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've never got one. The most I've got is like a color. I'll get like a band of color across the top of the photo or something like that, but never has it shown up. Yeah. Yeah, I can send you a photo of the cave if you want, and I could even do a little video or like a picture of where the kids were in the park if you want me to.
I would love that. I don't want you to go anywhere you're uncomfortable with, though, but I would love to see that, especially since your husband actually said, I've never noticed that cave before either.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll send you the photo, and then as far as that park, I have to cross that bridge every day on my way to work. So.
Oh my gosh! Of course, right?
Yeah.
You're like, of all places.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Pam,
it would be one of my favorite spots.
Oh, well, yeah, that would probably ruin it for me too. I'd be like, thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah.
So do you think that then they're angry that you can see or sense them, and that's why they react to you the way they do? And by the way, the thing in Ireland, that really threw me for a loop. I'm still kind of, I think, processing that. Oh.
Yeah. It felt way more refined
than
the ones over here. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it except it seemed more intelligent or older, or I don't know. Like it was just, like the ones over here seemed more wild-like or something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. They're rookies.
Yeah. Yeah. Or I don't know, maybe there are different tribes of them or something like that. But this one, he was scary. It's the only one that's ever tried to touch me or, nearly get me, I guess.
Yeah, because when people are speaking about what I saw, like shadow people, they're always like, well, shadow people they don't really touch anyone or hurt anyone, which is for the most part very true. They like to scare the crap out of you and mess with you in that way. But what you experience in Ireland, I don't even know what to say about that, really. And when you said it felt ancient, I just got the chills. That really gave me the chills when you said you felt it was ancient.
Yeah, it did. I felt like a spider or a fly in a spider's web, like it was creepy. And I've not seen one that looked serpent like that one. The ones over here they're scary, but they don't have that snaky look to them. And it even moved like it was, undulating. It was shaped like a man, but it was moving like a snake.
Was it even, I don't even know if this applies, but was it even touching the ground? Like, did it have any reason to interact with the ground like we would?
I don't think it was, to tell you the truth. I mean, from what I got before my vision started going, it was like it was moving over the ground. Absolutely. It was like, it had feet. It had feet shaped like what a man's feet would be like, but it certainly moved like it didn't need to use them.
Right.
I don't recall seeing it like a walking motion. It was like it was just coming at me. Like how a snake will move and bob. Like how a reptile will move like that when they're about to strike, like that shifty movement. It was like that was how it was moving. So, yeah. I have no clue what that kind was. I mean, most of them that I've seen several different kinds, but, there's things that make me think they're similar or maybe just a different type of same thing, like similar features, like the teeth. Most of them have the teeth. Most of them have like the pointy, longer ears. Most of them have like a tinier chin area with like a larger, eye and forehead part of their face. Most of them have the horns, different shapes of horns, but still horns. But this one looked reptilian in the face, like the shape of the whole head was like a cobra's. And the eyes were green, and they had like a black slit for the pupil, where the ones over here have the ones in the woods have like the silver eyes, like the one I saw at the cave. And then the ones in the water have like these dead looking eyes. Like the chick I saw that was messing with the little boys, her eyes were like this dead, like a blue color, like what you'd imagine a dead body color would be. And the ones in the water that I've seen seem to look like that. And then there's another kind that I've seen in the woods as well, and they have like a black, just a solid black. And that's, similar things that I see about them where their features may be a little different, or ones, like most of them were pretty short too, except for the one in Ireland. That sucker was tall. That one was really tall. And the ones over here seemed shorter. And, some of them, if they didn't have the eyes, if they didn't have the horns, they didn't, the eyes and the horns and the teeth, they could fit in with humans. I could see how they could mimic things and change, they're shaped like a man or a woman, their body. They're just, their head and their teeth, their eyes, the horns make them different. So, yeah.
So, Pam, how we were talking about the boys versus you, and you saw the terrifying creature with the black hair and the serrated teeth, and we're assuming, but they must have seen something different. If there was someone like you that could see these things, and you've had a few experiences with these, and let's assume someone else had, and they had been there with your friend, or they had been in the woods, do you think they would have seen something different? like this thing just manifests as it needs to terrify or intimidate the person? Or is that what it was? And it knows nothing else, and that's what it's going to look like? Or do you think all of these things can shapeshift for its various purpose for that encounter?
I definitely think that they can change their shape at their will. They can make themselves look different. Although, from what my perspective, I don't see, when they have no clue that I'm looking at them, I wonder, is that their true shape? Because I happen to see those traits in so many of them. I think that if somebody like me was there, they would have saw possibly the same thing I saw. And then maybe if it knew we were looking at it, maybe it could have changed. Once it knows we're locked on them. I don't know that. Right. I mean, this is speculation. And then I also think if it had just been Debbie there and I hadn't been on the scene, it might have showed her something beautiful. And like, you know what I mean? Like if it had targeted her, it definitely would have probably shown her something different. I think they have the will to let you see them or not, the people that don't naturally see them. Like in that situation, the little boys, like she was showing them something and she made herself visible to them, I think. Or either that or I think that's definitely it, because if they were like me and they could just see her, they would have been afraid of her.
Yeah, I think that unless you're Ted Bundy as a kid or one of these other, let's face it, they were just off, right, from when they were kids. Unless you're one of those, let's face it, that is not going to appeal to you. You're going to run screaming, and like I said, you won't sleep maybe the rest of your life, but hopefully you get a little sleep when you're like 45. I don't know. That wouldn't be something a kid would run towards. Period.
Mm-mm. No, absolutely not.
So, Pam, this, can you maybe elaborate if you're okay with it? And I won't bug you after this, I promise, because I know I've kept you so long, and I appreciate you so much. You mentioned the one, you said it was in the water with the black eyes, or the whole, like the sclera, the whole thing was black?
Yeah, no, that's in the woods.
Okay.
I've seen that one in the woods. Yeah, and the first one I ever saw, we were going in the woods. My husband was going to hang a tree stand up on our property, which that means we literally just had to walk down the drive, across the road, and up one little hill. It wasn't like we were going way back in the mountains here.
Okay.
This is close to our land, so we're on our land, close to home. So felt perfectly safe. We're going. Now, let me say this too. I've learned that I also see them more like in the early morning when like daylight turning, night turning to daylight, and then late in the evening, same thing, twilight time. So I've kind of learned if I'm going out to places where I might run across them, go in the middle of the day or when it's bright and sunny. I don't see them as often, with the exception of that one in the cave. And he was kind of in the cave, if you think about it. And it was kind of getting later on in the evening. It was kind of moving towards that time. So anyway, if that makes sense.
No, it does. In fact, I think that one of the things that I read was they have certain times of the day, or the, dusk or dawn where they come out, and certain times of the year, which I think you mentioned around Halloween. Mm-hmm. So that goes right along with it. Yeah.
Yep. I see them more. You see that's why I think these are, or, based on researching and stuff, this is the best thing I can put on them. I don't think they're demons. I think they're something different.
Right.
My Super Baptist side of the family thinks it's demonic, and I'm dealing with demons. My granny, who's definitely Baptist too, who's the worker, she's the one that's like, no, these are something else. And, so anyway, back to the story. So we're going to hang the tree stand, and he's found a tree. I'm hanging out at the bottom. He's, climbing the tree, putting the pegs in to climb up and put the stand in. And I just happened to look up the hill, and there's one coming down the hill. It's just kind of moving along. It didn't pay us any attention. It wasn't like it was focused on us. I think it just happened to be moving down that way. But this one, the eyes were completely black, completely black. Like they couldn't see anything black, the sclera, the pupil, the whole thing. It was shaped like a man, but its head would kind of remind you of like a hairy beast or something. Oh, like God. The hair kind of whipped back. Yeah, like it had hair like a beast in places, or, like, not like you'd think of Bigfoot, but like a dog, like how a dog's hair comes out around its head, like a shaggy looking dog.
Right, like it naturally just grows that way.
Yeah, yes. It's so hard to explain these things, but yeah, like that. and it was shaped like a man. It was completely nude. It was definitely male. I mean, it looked male. It had the hair kind of like on its body the rest of the way down too. I could see like the chest area, and the chest area was like more clear, like there wasn't as much hair on the chest area. At the bottom of it, its legs and like thigh area was completely covered in hair, and it had hooves. The feet were hooves.
Oh my God.
Yes, it was hooves. Made me think of the one my granny saw.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I mean, it didn't show us any interest though. You know, I just kept my mouth shut and turned around and focused on my husband. It moved on down and kept going. It didn't even come near us. It didn't even come our way or pay us any attention. So,
it never looked your way. So how close did it come to you, would you say?
It came within 10 feet.
Oh my
we were
God,
kind of
10 feet?
on the side of a hill. Yes. I mean, you can't flip out. I've so learned that I can't flip out or I'm going to get myself away. And so I just keep my mouth shut. I mean, this is way later in life, so I kind of know the ropes at this point. And it was weird, and I was definitely uncomfortable, but I just kept my mouth shut and turned away from it, and it passed us on by. If we're on the side of a hill and we're on he's up the tree and we're kind of like on a little, like a deer trail, then he was like 10 feet up on another little deer trail, and he was moving through the trees, and came on down that side of the mountain and disappeared on down into the woods. So, yeah.
And your husband, besides the whole Walmart thing, he doesn't really, he's not really in tune with this stuff, so he had no idea this was going on because you are trying really hard to ignore that this is going on.
Yeah, I mean, he knew I was giving him the signal that let's hurry this up and get out of here.
Okay.
Something's weird, so he got on with it, and I mean, he don't get in a hurry. He just wraps it up, and we move on out.
You're like, I gave you the signal, let's do this.
Yeah. He'll just get it together and we'll move on out, and he'll ask me if I'm okay, and we'll keep on trucking.
What do you think it was doing? I mean, why is it it's basically on your property, just walking down the deer trail. What's it doing?
Yeah, I don't know, Shannon. I don't know what they're doing. It's so weird. Now, I have boundaries up now. I have the iron up in different places. By listening to my granny, I've made like a little perimeter. It's like my little safe area, and now that area is included after that.
Oh, gosh.
But then it wasn't. It wasn't in the little area. And I don't see them as much. And I'll have to say, when I first did that, I did draw the attention of one, and it sort of hung around. And it seemed
what did that look like? What happened there?
Now, this is one with the silver eyes. Same thing, looked like the other one, looks male. Now, this one didn't have the hooves for feet. This one just looked like a man, just like a naked man with horns on his head. Same thing, the upper part of the head is like wider. The eyes are bigger. And this one had the silver eyes, like I was explaining with the one in the cave.
Mm-hmm.
But when I put that boundary up, I hadn't seen one in a while, and I did the boundary, and I was a little leery about it because I was kind of afraid that they might think that was odd and pay attention to why are you putting, you know what I'm saying?
Right, like it calls attention to you.
Yes, yeah, it does. I was a little nervous about that, but I felt I needed to do it. I thought it would make me feel safer, and I would feel more secure in my little area. So I did it, and it did catch the attention of one, and it would just sort of hang out around the edges. And it seemed uncomfortable with it, like it didn't want to come past the iron, but it would at times. I could visibly tell it was annoyed, and it didn't like it, but it was able to come across, but it wouldn't stay for long, and it would move back out. And now this is the worst part. My husband was out, he's always outside doing something around the house, and it locked onto him instead of me. It would be following him. He would move outside the boundary, and it would literally be on his heels, like it was trying to make him react to it. And I didn't tell him. I just kept my mouth shut. I didn't want him to know, so he wouldn't react. But it sort of just, shadowed him. It hung around for a few days, like maybe 3 or 4 days. I would come home from work, and it would still be kind of on the outskirts, checking things out.
And you can see this thing plain as day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like for every moment, you can see it. Like it's not shimmery or opaque or anything like that.
No. Looks as real as you or me. Absolutely.
Oh, and this is the one with the silver eyes, that he's on
Yes.
the heels of your husband.
Yes. He wouldn't come around in like midday sun, you know. It wasn't like, he always come like early in the morning I might see him, or like when I'm getting home with the work late in the evening.
It does,
he'd start
yeah.
coming around.
Oh my
and
gosh.
he would come around and just sort of watch us. And he never followed me like he did Brian. For whatever reason, that's my husband, he thought he was the target, or he was concerned about him. He would sort of shadow him, but he wouldn't do it for long. He would come in and he would kind of walk around and like trying to get him to react to him is how I felt. And then when he wouldn't, he would go back out. But it didn't cause him so much stress that he wouldn't do it. He just seemed annoyed by it.
Of course, he never saw it, right? I mean, if you turned around and you saw something with silver eyes, naked with horns on its head, you'd be like, I'm never going outside again.
Yeah, no, he never saw it. I certainly wasn't going to tell him because I was afraid he might react just being creeped out by it, and it think he could see it. So I didn't say nothing until it was gone, and then I told him about it. It definitely freaked him out, and he's definitely more aware when he's in the woods. And he's had a few things happen to him on his own that made him question if one was around, from being around me and hearing about it and stuff, but he's not saw one by himself. So yeah, I'm telling you, it's a lot to deal with. It's a lot.
I didn't know about, the thing in Ireland, and I didn't know that you just saw one a week ago. So, it makes me kind of feel bad though, because I feel like maybe you saw one a week ago because you called in to talk about these things. And now what's going to happen after this? Because we really delved into it.
It made me worry. Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm in the house. I'm like in the safest little place I feel safe, the safest place I feel. But you know, like I told you, my granny would be like, "Well, don't be doing that." She'd be mortified. But I feel like how else am I going to get answers? I want to see if other people are having the same thing, or is it drilled into them the same as it is me to keep your mouth shut?
Yeah.
And you know, I want answers, and I mostly want to know what I can do. What can I do to defend myself besides the things I already know to do? Does anybody else know something that would protect me if I do give myself away? You know, hopefully somebody has something out there, because I got nothing.
Well, and it does seem that up till now, I mean, really, you've followed all the rules, and you've had many experiences. Yeah. I mean, that thing in Ireland is, I can't think of anything more aggressive than that.
No.
You're likening it to getting hit in the head, your hair being pulled. I don't know what's more aggressive than that. So yeah, it sounds like you followed all the rules, so you may as well throw a line out there and see if anyone else has these same experiences and what you can do about it.
Yeah, I'd really like to know. I mean, I do the prayers. I certainly do that, and I do believe in God, and, you know, I believe there's definitely good, not just all the bad. I do believe there's good, too. And, you know, like I told you, I've had a few encounters where they didn't seem so bad, or it was something that made me think, you know, God's there, too, and I'm not just thrown to the wolves with these things. I mean, I think maybe there is some kind of rules they abide by. Like, we have to cross some kind of line that gives them permission to harm us or to do whatever it is they do to us. You know, I do believe that, and I do feel like I'm protected to a degree.
Well, I think the story of Clint, right? He's like, no, I don't want to sit down and take a nap right now. Or, the story of the goat man thing on the fence. You're like, no, my load's not heavy. I'm good here. I think if you say no, but if you say yes, I mean, maybe that's the whole key to the whole thing. I don't know. But it really, really reminds me of a lot of things that we're hearing about nowadays, right, Pam? The things that are like the big blaring questions, like why are people going missing in the woods, and why are people ending up dead in rivers when they're completely healthy and they've been around a ton of people, and somehow, and this just came to mind, the men that go into crowded bars, right? and they're partying, they're having a good time. Maybe they're drinking a lot, maybe they aren't, but eventually they end up dead in a river in a very urban place, but somehow they're not caught on any of the security cameras leaving the bar or leaving the building or any of the traffic cameras where they should have been walking down to their ultimate death. It kind of makes me wonder about when you were stuck in Ireland in that weird place after you were quote unquote hit with from the cobra, right? You're like, I'm seeing things in a different light. Like I can't see, but I can see. So I just wonder if, like, are these folks stuck in some alternate, I mean, I'm getting down a crazy rabbit hole, but you kind of see what I'm getting at. I just wonder how much these things are tied in.
Yep. And after all of what I've just told you about some of the other ones that I've seen, you can see why I think that first one my granny encountered, I definitely think that's one of them.
Yes.
The one she saw.
Yes.
Definitely. And this is another thing, too. Her grandpa thought, the one that was the good worker, he felt like that people can ask, or people do and can ask them to do things for you, like healing and stuff like that.
Really?
Or whatever it might be. But he said you never know what they're going to ask back, what they're going to want in return. And so he said there's some people crazy enough to take that chance. And, you know, and those are maybe the ones we never hear of again.
Wow.
I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And that's just another thread. And it's a crazy rabbit hole and it's all assumptions and we just don't know. But when I hear these same kind of lines going through these different stories that I'm hearing and authors that I read, and I'm like, my goodness, I can't help but make some kind of, just at least a reference. I don't know for sure, but why did that thing in Ireland do that to you? That's so different from the other ones.
It is. That one felt different from the other one. It did. It felt more malicious, more, like I said, more ancient, like it was, but in the same way, I kind of felt like, it would have been whatever I wanted it to be, if that makes sense. Like, like I might have felt like I was in some kind of heaven till the end part. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like it would, like it plays with people, or they play with people that way, where they can make you think you're having the time of your life, or, you're in some sort of bliss, but really they're doing something awful to you till the end. And, you realize the reality of the situation. I kind of felt like that too, like the way it was messing with me, whatever it did to me to make things look different and sound different. And I wondered, did it even know if I could see it in that form, or if it did just pick me for whatever reason? So many questions, I know.
Yeah, I know. That's the main vein of the whole thing is you get into this and it's just more questions than answers.
The point of that was that they can enchant you. I think they can enchant you. Even people that can see them. Mm-hmm. They can obviously, they can mess with you. They can make you see and hear and God knows what else it was going to do. Ugh. It's creepy.
So what about you, Pam? I mean, for your everyday, considering that you just saw one a week ago. And by the way, so you saw one a week ago. Before that week, when was the last time you had seen or can attribute anything to the Fae?
Let's see. Probably back around like the middle of May, spring.
Okay.
I run across one. Yeah. And same thing, it didn't have a clue. It didn't pay me any attention. It just kept doing its own thing. This one's really creepy. I was headed to work. I was driving down the road. We're back in the country, so country roads, and there was a deer that had been hitting the road, and this thing was crouched down at the deer. Now, I couldn't see blood on it or anything like that, but it was definitely messing with the deer. Like it was going to move. I don't know if it was going to move the deer, or if it was, I don't know what it was doing with the deer, but it was focused on the deer. I'm coming along in the headlights, and it immediately caught my attention. It wasn't in my lane, it was in the opposite lane, and I could see the eyes, automatically, like my light shined on it. I could see the eyes. And this one was female, similar to the males. So she looked like a lady. She looked naked. She had like the hair, had the horns, similar to the ones I see in the woods. But this was early in the morning. I leave out at like 5 o'clock in the morning, so this was early. And yeah, she was messing with that deer. And I just kept on driving. You know, I didn't pay her any attention, and she didn't even seem to pay me any attention, even with my lights on her. You know, she just glanced up for a second and then went back to what she was doing. Like she was trying to move it or pulling at it. Yeah, another creepy.
I mean, they're definitely okay being different beings because, first of all, they have no clothes. Second of all, they have horns almost all the time, you said, right? Mm-hmm. So they're not really trying to blend in that well.
Mm-mm. No, I think like with her and the other one, they expect us not to be able to see them.
Right. They just are what they are, and unfortunately for you, you can see them, which, I mean, but okay, so they're otherworldly beings, but they still, you know, they're eating deer, they're hunting, they're stalking.
Yeah, creepy. You know, that they can consume or you know,
need
like
to consume.
It didn't have blood on it.
Yeah.
Right. Or need to. Yeah, like what does it need with a deer?
Right.
Why is it messing with a dead deer? It's just.
Yeah, if you're an otherworldly being, like maybe you're just never hungry. You're like the vampires in that stupid Twilight series, and you know, you're like, well, I never need to sleep. And in their case, they're like, well, unfortunately, I need to eat. So,
I'll have to say they've never looked transparent or anything like that, with the exception of like the one that looked like a tree, which I don't think is the same thing. I think that's a different thing.
That's the elemental you were saying, right?
Yeah, those, I mean, it's totally different from this thing that was in the road. And I think maybe that's what people wanting to call up, but they may be getting this other thing.
Isn't that interesting though? One. I mean, in the one in Ireland, I mean, it didn't want to, you know, consume you, or at least it didn't seem like that. We're assuming, but I don't know what the motive there was. I'm still getting...
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm so really thrown for that one. That is one of the... I don't know. That one confounds me, Pam, to be honest with you. That's one of the most interesting ones I've heard in a really long time, so... thanks for sharing that with me. I know that was really hard for you to tell. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was scary.
I bet you will not be going down that road again. If you even go back to Ireland, which I would be like, you know what, let's just go to the Bahamas or, I don't know, somewhere really, really sunny also, and I wanted to ask you what you think about this. What do you think it is with the whole dawn dusk thing and the Halloween time and, you know, the leaves changing or whatever that is? What is it with those times of the day and night and that time of the year? Why is that so, attractive, or why does that give them power?
Well, you know, this is just my theory, and this is my granny's theory, that they don't like the sun, first of all. That's why she thinks I don't see them out in the middle of the day or in the bright sun. They think of sun similar to fire. This is her guess.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the sun thing. But now, as far as the times of the day and the times of the year, she thinks that might be that they're able to move in and out of our world at that time. You know, like that. Like the reason I see them more during like Beltane or Beltana or at Samhain or Halloween is because however they move from their place to ours, they can do it easier. And so I'm seeing more of an influx of them because they're able to get around better.
So that's the whole the veil is thinner kind of a thinking.
Yeah. Like they can move easier. It's not as hard for them. And this is just our conjecture, you know. This is just us trying to figure this out.
Right.
Yeah. And the whole fire thing, this is interesting too, I think, is part of the reason they don't like the fire stinks is that, the fire like represents the creator. Like then the fire is like an example of our invisible God, his power, and he gave it to man to protect themselves. Like these things can do whatever with the other elements, but this particular one, this is our defense against them. And they hate that. Like, they despise that. They don't feel like they should be on the same footing as us. Like, there's always this tension or anger towards us, you know, supposedly in the folklore. And when I've seen them, they certainly don't seem too thrilled with us. I mean, they don't, you know what I'm saying?
To say the least, yeah. Gosh.
Yeah.
You've gone through, literal hell with some of these things. That's terrifying.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is scary. It really is.
See, but your idea of the whole, you had the 3 options, which I really like, because we don't know. Like you said, the word of the evening is conjecture, but the idea of the Garden of Eden, and we are the reason that they got cast out with us because we screwed up. No wonder they don't like us. Like, if that's the reason, then...
Yeah, if that is the reason, yeah.
Right. But only the sensitive ones, people like you, for... you know, bullet point 1, 2, or 3, whatever that might be, blood type, background, like I've already mentioned, you guys are the ones that unfortunately have to see that and take the brunt of it, because I can honestly say, unless my shadow people were Fae somehow, which for now, those aren't getting tied together, but you never know, right? We're talking about crazier tie-ins already. I don't know. I mean, is this all tied in? All of it. I mean, 100% of what we're talking about could be tied in, and we just have no clue, because I think we have very limited scope of what's around us. And sometimes we think that we're pretty damn awesome when maybe we're not really that much.
I totally agree. I think there is so many. I mean, I'm sure there's so many that I've not run across yet. You know,
but I hope that you don't, though. I mean, my gosh.
Yeah, well, yeah, me too. But I'm just saying, it's like there really is this whole other world that we share ours with from time to time. And I think there's lots of things in it, lots of different beings. Some that like us maybe, or not doesn't like us at all.
Right.
For sure. And maybe some of those, even, I could see how the shadow thing, that could possibly be a kind, or maybe it was one of them and it showed you that instead of it's what I see it looking like.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Who knows? It could have been that. It could have been throwing you a different look, a glamour, like like the folklore says. You never know. Or maybe there's another type of them. Could be. I've not seen that type, but who knows? It could be.
Yeah, I think that everything that I've ever talked about on a podcast or heard about on a podcast could be thrown into the Fae, and really, honestly, in one form or another. You got aliens, you got Bigfoot, which some people think are aliens, and then the Bigfoot, they fly in UFOs. Rosemary Ellen Guiley have talked about the jinn, which are ancient beings that hate human beings. So that ties in, too. Right, with the Fae, and the fact that, you were talking about the whole Garden of Eden thing, and then the jinn are just always, I think that the jinn could shapeshift. I don't want to quote myself on that. It's been a while with the jinn, but they cannot stand human beings, and they're always just trying to mess with us, so that also ties in. Anyway, it's a can of worms, but, I don't want you to, have a month long of, Fae encounters with horns and hooves because you're talking about it with me.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first. That's why in the beginning I was saying, I went back and forth about whether to do it or not. But I don't know how else to get answers. Honestly, except to try to find like-minded people, or at the very least people that will take me seriously and help me work through it and try to put the pieces together. Even if nobody else out there has seen them. But I think there's people like me that is afraid to talk about them or has been told to keep your mouth shut. I believe that, and hopefully, one of them will come forth and tell their story. I hope.
See, and that's a great point, Pam, because all your life you've been told just to ignore it and don't talk about it. So I think for you guys with this whole faith thing, if that's what you think it is, that's a double-edged sword, because you're like, well, first of all, I'm not supposed to talk about Fight Club, and second part, I'm not supposed to talk about Fight Club. So, but hey guys, Pam's doing it, so let's just, like I say, we're going fishing. Let's see if anyone else has any experiences like this. Is there a rule breaking if you're putting it in an email? Probably, but the email is shannon@endofthefrayradio.com, and you can, always stay anonymous, and I can forward any stories to Pam. I can get you and Pam, connected if that's what you want. It doesn't have to do anything with the show if you don't want it to. But Pam, a huge thanks to you for coming forward and talking about this, especially since you were a kid, you were told not to talk about this. So I can't thank you enough, and I really wasn't expecting these other stories, especially the one from Ireland, that I'm still kind of processing that. I'm sure I'm going to come up with 15 questions in the next,
sorry.
day.
There's so much. It's hard to hit you with it all at once because people, even just the first two I shared, like you don't hear right. People talking about having so many encounters, and I know it sounds crazy. And so I felt like if I hit you with all of it, you would have just thought I was a nut job and wrote me off. And
no, I don't think you're. No, I don't think you're crazy. I just think like I'm thinking of being the interviewer, and I'm like I should be processing this faster and coming up with really good questions, but I'm still processing this, so I have no. I kind of feel like that was. At the closest realm that I can put myself there and even begin to experience what you did, which I can't. No one can. So, that one was a big deal. I get that. So, I want to keep in contact, and please, if anything else happens, please let me know. And everyone out there listening, a big high five to Pam for sharing all this stuff. And if you guys can, please come forward and just say, you know what, yeah, I do kind of have some things like Pam has had, and maybe you can elaborate on some of that stuff so that we can begin to understand some of this better. And as per most subjects, a lot of times it's more questions than answers, but I really do, I believe in going and throwing that fishing line in and just seeing what we get.
Yeah, and thank you for letting me, talk to you about it. And I appreciate that you, giving me the chance to explain. Like I said, it's a lot. And yeah, I appreciate you letting me give you the backstory, and so you understand that it's not something that I see every day. Sometimes, like I've told you, I'll go months without seeing one, and then boom, I'll just happen across one. So I just appreciate you letting me, giving me the option to talk to you about it and getting your feedback too. I really wanted to hear your take on things, and as well as the listeners, but you for sure, and just to have the interaction with you and to be able to discuss it with someone outside of the family is really, really good, really great.
Well, thanks, Pam. I'm glad that when I was kind of going down on those random tangents with the whole thread, the word thread that I keep using, that you weren't like, oh no, I wasn't thinking that at all. You were kind of like, yeah, I kind of was thinking that too, and maybe not, and we just don't know. But what else can we do but just kind of see where our brains take us?
Yep, try to work it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And especially if you think that these things are ancient. Our brains can't really process that kind of thing. So,
no.
Yeah. When it comes to that kind of a subject, I think that there's conjecture, and then we are so inept at even beginning to grasp what is going on. And that very well could be. And people can laugh at that, but it may not be that funny.
I agree. Yeah, I think we don't understand a lot of this world. Yeah. Like you said earlier, we're not on top like we think. I really believe that. We're not like number one down here. There's other things going on.
Well, yeah, and so, Pam, you did say that in your call. You said we are not at the top of the food chain. You realized that very quickly.
Yep, definitely. Those the scary ones that I've run into, like I told you, you get this in the pit of your stomach, like if you were coming up to a grizzly bear, like get out of Dodge. Get away from it. Don't interact with it. I mean, I'm so fascinated. I want to know what they are, but you won't find me walking up to one trying to talk to it or something.
Please don't ever do that. No matter how badly you want to know the answers, don't ever do it. Not that I probably have to tell you that twice.
And that's what my husband says too. Like, keep your head down and don't ever talk to him. He totally agrees. And he's a big skeptic of the whole thing, and he's a mindset based on his experience with being around me and all the things he's heard is just keep ignoring them. Don't interact with them. Just keep to yourself. And that's what I do.
Well, Pam, please, let's keep in contact. And even if you see one tomorrow, let's try to put out some cake or milk or something and say, we're sorry for talking about you guys. Let's just leave Pam alone, okay?
Well, thanks. I appreciate you having me on, like I said, and I'll send you the video or like a photo one of the park in the middle of the day.
Yes, like high noon. Don't go dawn, dusk, anywhere near that. Okay, we don't need to really exacerbate this anymore.
No, but I do want to point out right fast that the ones in the water do not have horns. I just want to make that plain. The ones in the water are a little different.
Really?
But
now,
anyway,
why is that? Why don't they have horns?
I don't know. I have no idea, but
because they have tails, because they have fins, or what's the deal there?
I mean, they just look like that one looked like the shape of a woman. The teeth are all weird. The hair is like long and black, and there's not hair on their body either, like the ones in the wood. She just looked like what a woman's skin would look like, except super white and pasty, like waterlogged looking. Yeah, not pretty, but topless. Like you could tell it was female. Didn't have any clothing on, but no horns. But the forehead and the eyes are similar shaped, but the eyes are different. Like the blue, I explained like how a dead person's eyes would look, maybe like a light colored blue, like somebody, how that dead look is. Anyway, I'm sorry to get off on a sidetrack again.
See, but what if you were a single male on the hunt? Would you see beautiful blue eyes and a beautiful half-naked woman in the water and like, quote-unquote, a mermaid, right? You're being glamored.
Yep.
And then down you go. I don't know.
I mean, there's a few other encounters that I've had, and there was one where she was paying me no attention. She wasn't paying no attention to us, but a boat came down. It was rafters, and it was full of men. It was a boat full of men rafting, and she went straight in the water after that boat. Caught her attention, and she was off. Now, I did pay attention to see if anybody got knocked out of the boat or, God forbid,
missing
drowned,
people.
But there wasn't.
Nothing there.
Yeah, there was nothing like that. So I don't know if it just, piqued her interest, or maybe, who knows, maybe she wasn't going off after them. But I just thought that was odd how she just sort of, she wasn't paying anybody any attention until all of a sudden it was all dudes. And she's gone.
Why are they always by themselves?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't see them together that often. Well, with the exception of one time. And it's another, this one was like one of the female looking ones from the wood, and she had like one of the little man things, like the one I saw when I was little. And he was with her. That's the only time I've ever saw two together. Yeah. And, I mean, he looked similar to the one in my first encounter, or maybe a little dirtier and ickier looking.
But they were little.
Still old.
They were both little?
Yeah, no, she was like, like 5 foot something, maybe 5'5". He was little. So it was one of the taller ones and one of the little ones together. And he was kind of just hanging around with her. It was like, I don't know if he was there of his own free will or not, but it seemed like she had control of him. Like he was doing whatever she wanted to do.
What in the world?
I know how crazy that sounds. I know how crazy that sounds. But
I'm not even going to just say what I'm going to say because I'll get so many emails. But hey, we're in charge. I'm just saying.
She had him. I mean, he stayed right with her. He was like right with her. He didn't go far from her.
No,
she was like she was like up in a tree. She even got up in the tree, and she was like flipping around and like playing around in the tree. And he was kind of at the bottom of the tree, kind of just hanging out and waiting on her. It was super weird. I know I mean, they're scary looking, but...
What the heck was she doing?
I don't know. I mean, was she playing? I don't know.
Was this on your property, too?
Yeah, that was on it was on my dad's property, but yeah, absolutely.
In the Appalachian Mountains?
Mm-hmm. Carolina. Thanks for keeping my identity secret. I appreciate that.
Of course. Are you sure? Is it okay to keep in, like, the whole Appalachia and all that stuff?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't think any of my folks would be listening.
I want to go out there. Of course, I know that I won't see anything because I never do, except for that one time.
Well, you never know.
I mean, he was waiting on her, and she's just in the tree, yeah,
she was
ninja warrior.
You know, she looked a little bit younger than the other ones that I've saw. But, you know, like, I'm not sure of that. But she seemed more playful and that sort of thing. Like, she wasn't, most of them were like moving if they're on some kind of mission, but she was sort of just like goofing off. I mean, that's the way it looked to me. I don't know that.
But she had horns. Because you say that the ones in the woods, they almost always have horns, right?
Yeah, she had the horns. Yeah, she was definitely one from out of the woods that I see. And the little guy, I mean, maybe he's some other kind, but he reminded me of the one, you know, that I saw when I was little. Definitely.
Well, what was she wearing?
She wasn't wearing anything. She looked naked too. Like the ones in the woods that I see, you know, with like, you can see like breasts and, she had like the hair, but it wasn't as much of the hair, like there was less hair.
Is it always straight, like black hair?
No, like it was like a light brown looking color. Like I've seen the hair is different colors.
See, and why would the hair have to be different colors, right?
You got me.
Why they need separate identities, even though they're other world? It's just, it's so much, right? It's so much.
It is. I told you, it's a lot. It's a lot. And I've researched so much just trying to find a description of what the ones that I see over here. And I can't find anything. Even in the Irish lore, they describe them more, that they're more like people. You'd be beside one, you wouldn't even know it. Nothing like what I saw at the Hill of Tara. They don't describe them like that. And the ones I see here, I can't find a description, except with the exception of the little man. You know, it sounds like what the Cherokee saw.
Right.
That does fit. But these other things, that don't fit. Just that they're otherworldly and they're scary.
It sounds like the world of Avatar, like, come to life, you know?
Ugh. Yeah, it does.
Of course, they wear more clothes than what you see.
Yeah, these don't seem to like clothes at all.
Did she have some kind of so you were mentioning the little man, he had clothes and he had like this waistband thing, maybe a pouch with something in it or whatever. Yep. Did she have something like that?
No, she didn't have anything like that, but now he was wearing clothes. He was clothed. He had on like a little trouser and like a little green shirt. He didn't have on a pack or anything like the other one did, but he had on clothing. He was not nude like that one.
See? Why? Why did he have clothes and she was nude?
I have no idea.
So many questions.
It was really bizarre. And that's the only time I've ever saw them, like more than one in the same place.
That's the one single time that they were together.
Yep, where I saw two together that maybe the little man is something different. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe. But that's the only time I saw two of the weird things that I see, you know, in the same place and like interacting with each other. He was definitely at her beck and call.
Okay, so he definitely saw her and she was aware of him.
Yeah, she was aware of him. He was aware of her. Yeah, definitely. He was staying right with her. He stayed at the bottom of the tree while she was goofing around.
Did they pay attention to you?
Nope, they didn't pay me any attention.
Of course, you're doing your whole, like, put your hand up and you're like, doo-doo-doo, I'm going to act like I'm going to look at the ground. Yeah.
I mean, it was interesting. I was in the house, so I was able to, look out the window and kind of keep an eye out, you know, look out and see if they were still out there. And they hung around for a little bit. And then they moved on. Just sort of moved on.
But as per usual, if you were to get out your iPhone or whatever and try to film these things, there would be nothing there.
Right. I wouldn't have been able to see it. I've tried, not every time, but many times I've tried. Just seeing one passing, I've tried that, just like holding up my phone, trying to get a photo, and it didn't show up. like they're not even there.
Well, I guess if you're
terrible.
an otherworldly being, that's one of the pros is you don't show up on film. Right? Of course. Of course they don't.
So when the little boys saw it, that was like, confirmation for me.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, where they could see it too. They knew something was there. They were seeing something different maybe, but they were seeing something. So yeah.
I just went and watched the movie It, and I'll be the first to admit that I am just now reading the book after I watched the movie, which is very unlike me because I love the books usually more than the movie, which usually they're better. That's just how things work.
Yep, I'll agree.
Yeah, but the idea of the entity from it will bring to life your greatest fears. It's not trying to glamour you or make you feel comfortable to lure you in. It's kind of more like that entity in Ireland that you came across, right? So this idea has been around for a really, really, really long time, and even people like Stephen King are like, well, that's a really good book idea, and that's exactly what it is. It just takes your greatest fears and brings them to life. And anyone that's read the book or has watched the movie will see that once they finally go to confront it will, if you're afraid of clowns, you're going to be in a room full of clowns. That's just how that works. So I find that idea very interesting.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. There's a reason why, all down through the folklore, people tried to placate them and, was afraid they were around them when they didn't know it and would call them the good people and would try to leave them offerings. I mean, bad things happened to some people because they interacted with them, and that got passed on to be careful and treat them with respect and reverence and not to cross them. I mean, there's a reason they were scared of them, I feel like that right there says it all, that they're dangerous and we need to be aware of them and stay off their path. And like I said, I mean, I realize that maybe people out there won't be able to see them like me, but you might get that feeling in your gut, something's there, or that scared feeling, or, if your kid's pointing at something and you don't see anything, take it serious.
Right. Yeah.
Give them, and don't dismiss your kids, because sometimes they are seeing a monster, and just maybe you can't see it,
So, those are really good parting words, and I'm not laughing about it at all. Sometimes there are monsters under the bed. Even though you can't see it, they might really be there to your kids or to other family members.
Yep, definitely.
Well, Pam, hey, thank you so much. I don't want to keep you any later. Let's keep in touch. I really am hoping that this doesn't stir things up for you. But if you need someone to talk to, I'm going to send you my cell phone number if you need to just call and talk. It doesn't have to do anything with the show ever. Just keep in touch with me, okay? And I will let you know the second that anybody, hey guys, we're looking for those similar stories. And again, doesn't have to do with the show if you don't want it to be. Maybe you just want to call and talk to Pam, or you want to email her, or through me, I can be the middleman. Just anybody that has similar experiences, let us know, please.